What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 363. Where there's smoke, usually where there's smoke, there's some type of fire, and there's a lot of smoke happening right now. And yeah, even though a lot of people in the southern east and northeast and regions is all dealing with snow and ice right now, there seems to be a lot of smoke because there's a lot of things happening, a lot of fires burning right now. This was one of those weeks where everything kind of exploded all at the same time, and this has definitely been one to navigate, to say the least. But yeah, we got plenty of things that we'll talk about. But if this is your first time here, this is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we talk about the crazy things that are going on around the world right now in regards to the last days. We're called to be watchmen. We're called to pay attention to what is happening and to make sure that we're not caught off guard by things, that we're aware of the times that we're living, and we can use it to encourage each other and to use it as a witnessing tool for those who need Jesus. There's a lot of people that definitely need Jesus, to say the least. So, but yeah, welcome in. Glad to have you guys here. And yeah, so where there's smoke, there's a lot of things we're going to be going over. There was so much stuff that happened this past week. I couldn't get it all in today's thing. So there's going to be some stuff that'll have to wait until Tuesday, which is fine because, again, get a little bit more time to kind of see what else rolls out and clarify some things on some of those topics. But tonight we'll be going over a few things. We got the latest thing where Trump has said that he wants home prices to go higher. He does not want them to go lower. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Trump is also suing the IRS, seeking $10 billion. And guess who gets to pay that if he wins? That's right. It would be the American people. Then he announced the his Fed chair pick, which is Kevin Warsh. We'll talk about him and his connections and who he is and all that type of stuff. We also got some stuff when it comes to more fascism, the Trump administration taking another stake in another private company. We also got, during this quote-unquote immigration crackdown that we continue to get fed, Trump has added more guest visas, foreign visas, to come into the country. We also got some other things going on where the Pentagon has allowed Chinese intelligence, not by accident, not, like all these people say, but no, they've been working with Chinese intelligence when it comes to computers and stuff like that. We also got more stuff with Venezuela. We got stuff with Cuba. We got stuff with the Panama Canal. We got stuff when it comes to the EU. We got some stuff with the UN, some stuff with the Board of Peace. We also got some stuff with Israel and stuff with Iran and Saudi Arabia. And then we got more updates on ICE things, some tech updates regarding that as well. And we'll talk about some stuff when it comes to the national fraud investigator that we were waiting for. Looks like you picked one for that. So it just keeps piling up. The stuff just keeps piling up and it keeps going. Can drive a lot of people mad, drive a lot of people crazy because there's so much stuff going on. But hey, got to try and sort it out and stay up to date on what's going on. So anyways, but yeah, hopefully you guys had a good week. Hopefully everybody is doing well today. Because everybody in the chat, topics seem to be weather and coffee. So yeah, not a lot of difference. Nothing different there from the usual stuff. So let's go ahead and get into what we got with housekeeping. If I can find the thing. There it is.
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, so for housekeeping, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe. Get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me solid and like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. I know for a fact that YouTube is still currently shadow banning my channel. Right now, the analytics say so. So, yeah, liking, sharing, and subscribing is kind of needed at this point, at this moment in time. So please, if you guys can do me a solid and do those things, I would certainly appreciate it. Also, if you guys can follow Rumble and Telegram if you want to. Rumble is the backup channel. If we get booted off YouTube, we'll be backup live streaming over on Rumble. And then Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. I just kind of throw up on Telegram throughout the week and whatnot. So if you want to, go ahead and start following over there. If not, no worries. Just make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop to stay up to date and everything that's going on around, this channel and the things that we do and everything. You'll find the latest podcasts, live streams are over there, of course. And then we got announcement page and the free book to download and all that type of stuff. So yeah, just make sure you guys bookmark the website so you're always up to date on what's going on and you're not left behind. Not that way, but left behind on what's going on here. You know what I mean? Anyways, last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, Give, Send, Go. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. Run solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys like to support this channel and the things that we do and all that type of jazz, you can find those links down below. So thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys for allowing this to go forward. It's through your generous hearts that make everything happen, your prayers and your encouragement as well. So thank you guys for your support. Certainly appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you for that. All right. That's all we got with housekeeping today. What is going on here? Okay, there we go. All right. Let's see here. Jalapeno, I'm behaving. No, you're not, man. You're never behaving. You're always in trouble. You're the troublemaker. You're the mastermind behind it. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started with stuff. It is Saturday. We normally do the Wretched Weather Report. We're not going to do it again. I know that we've had multiple times recently where we skipped it, but there's just too much stuff going on. So we're not going to do the Wretched Weather Report today because we got so much jalapeno. I'm trying. Oh, man. But yeah, so no Wretched Weather Report. If you're in the United States in about 80% of the country, then you're cold right now. If you're somewhere else in the world, you know what's going on. So hopefully Saturday things will slow down a little bit and we'll be able to get back to it. So, but we're going to go ahead and jump over to the first thing that we got that we're going to talk about tonight. God is good, but this cold is not. I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the first thing that we got going on here and take a look at some financial stuff. And we got Trump says he wants higher home prices, even if buyers can't afford them. He looks straight into the nation priced out of shelter and promises to make it worse. And so, yes, if you guys don't know, Trump recently just came out. He said it on video out of his own mouth. He smiled at the nation and said, I want home prices to go up. And basically what that's doing is making the elder generation who already owns their homes, they're fine, but everybody else is basically getting locked out of being able to buy a house because of the home prices. And so this goes right along with what we have been saying over and over and over again for years, because the WEF came out with it. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. This is forcing people into renting and not owning a home. And basically, this is Donald Trump left eyebrows raised when he said he wants to keep housing prices up as millions of Americans fear never being able to own a home. It says, in recent cabinet meeting, Trump was asked by the media why he didn't consider finding ways to lower prices for homeowners. The president said that that was never his plan. Trump said, we're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down, but I want to protect the people who, for the first time in their lives, feel good about themselves. They feel like wealthy people. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for the people who own their homes. Meanwhile, a recent report by Zillow reveals that in the coming year, home prices are expected to rise further by another 1.9%, and the median age of first-time homebuyers has risen to 59 years old. So basically, it's for those who are buying homes for the first time, they're not being able to do it until about 59 years old. You know, I used to hear stories all the time, and I see in the old classic movies and TV shows and stuff that people back in their mid-20s a few years ago, when I say a few years ago, I mean, you know, back in the 60s and stuff like that. The people are buying homes at the age of like 25. They already were married and having kids and buying a home and everything. Look at what's going on now. It's crazy where you're 59 years old before you're buying a home. If you're buying a home, that's going to be with Trump's new 50-year mortgage to go on it. Jobs are crazy to find. People have to work multiple jobs. The wife now has to go out and work in order to be able to afford the homes that they're renting, because they can't even just go off of one income anymore. And kids are hard to come by now with the babies being born is dropping. There's a lot of things that are happening right now. And Trump is basically telling you, guess what? I'm not going to try and fix anything. I'm actually going to make it worse for people who want to buy homes before they're 60 years old. It says before he took office, there were suggestions that withdrawals from 401ks and college savings account would be allowed to use for down payment for the first-time buyer relief, but that too was also missing from the final executive order. For critics, this can only mean one thing: the American dream, which we know the American dream is exactly what it means, because you have to be dreaming. You have to be asleep in order to have the American dream of owning a home has now been deferred to a nation of lifelong renters. You will own nothing and be happy. Prioritizing higher prices for people who already own their homes exacerbates the crisis for younger would-be buyers and even renters. Some are already reading this as yet another instant of Trump failing to live up to his promises. And so, yeah, we got another thing going on here with Trump lying to people and continuing to drive the economy into a worse position. But we know that that's what needs to be done, because that is the globalist elite plan, is to destroy the economies and time it so they can crash the system to bring in the new system. Again, the people who think that Trump is the only one standing in the way of globalism here in the United States won't tell you that that's the case. But the fact is evidence, and a whole heaping mountain of it, so much it's Mount Everest, tells us that that's exactly what's going on. So here we go. Moving forward with this. But don't worry, he's offering the 50-year mortgage to take care of that. So I'm just curious, how many people actually own their homes here? And that's the other lie that we got to remember when it comes to this, is you don't actually own your home, because if you stop paying property taxes, they take your home. So do you actually own it at that point? You don't. You actually do not at that point, which somebody brings up a good point about that too, because more property taxes, higher home prices means higher property taxes, higher insurance rates and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that's not going to be helping much of anybody. Jalapeno is still waiting on his $2,000 check. Yeah, he came out and said that he never said that. I don't know if people saw that either. He was asked about the $2,000 bonus check that people are going to get. First, it was the Doge check. Then it was the tariff check. And he says that he doesn't recall saying that, and it's fake news. So, yeah, fun times on that. On top of that, we got Trump sues the IRS and the Treasury for $10 billion for tax return leak. It says Trump sued the U.S. Treasury and Internal Revenue Service for at least $10 billion, with a B, billion, over an unauthorized disclosure of his tax returns to the press during his first time in office, potentially putting American taxpayers on the hook for a massive payout. So yeah, this is another case where Trump is suing his own government. He's done it. He's already done it once before, where he's suing his own people, which means he's going to sue the government, and his loyalists are running the government, which means he's probably going to win it. And this is another case of doing it because guess who runs the U.S. Treasury and the IRS? Scott Bessent. And so who's going to be the one that will directly pay $10 billion to Trump if he wins this thing? It'll be you. It'll be the taxpayer. It's him pilfering the American finances. But it's all for the good stuff. I wonder if what Q is coming up with this one to answer for this one. It says the suit was filed Thursday in Miami federal court by Trump, his sons Donald Jr. and Eric, and the Trump Organization, which manages the president's real estate holdings. It says Trump lawsuit revisits a clash that took center stage week before the 2020 election. Yeah, we're not getting to that tonight. That's one of the things I got to push back till Tuesday, but there's been some interesting stuff about that. but we'll have to wait until Tuesday. But yeah, center stage weeks before the 2020 election, when New York Times published an explosive report on Trump's tax records that was based on leaked IRS data. The former IRS contractor Charles Littlejohn pleaded guilty in 2023 to stealing Trump's tax data and leaking it to the Times. He also stole tax records for thousands of other wealthy Americans, including Ken Griffin, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos, which he leaked to ProPublica. The lawsuit by a sitting president against the government he leads puts Trump in a highly unusual position in the case. Loyal administration officials at the Justice Department could ultimately decide whether to move to settle the case and for how much. It says the filing adds to a series of lawsuits brought by Trump or his sprawling real estate empire over the past year that have targeted news outlets and banks, including JP Morgan, which he sued last week. Total damages being sought in the case is up to $50 billion. The IRS case was assigned to U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams, an appointee of Obama. And here's all of Trump's lawsuits that he's recently put in during this Trump presidency. It says, according to the New York Times report, the IRS reports showed that Trump, who lost the election to Joe Biden in 2020, had paid $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017, and no taxes in 10 of the previous 15 years because of large losses that offset any profits. And this is something that we've talked about in the past, and we've shown a lot of stuff about a lot of evidence regarding his business ventures and everything, which he's bankrupted so many companies. He's failed in so many business ventures. And the only reason why he continues to get out of it is because of the connections that he has. Connections to the Rothschilds, connections to Saudi princes, connections to the government, which has bailed him out multiple times as well. And so that's the thing I hope people realize is he is not some genius, business mogul like he likes to claim that he is, and a lot of people claim he is. The fact is the only reason why he's continuing to be in that position is because, one, he has people around him that make all the smart decisions for him, and two, it's the elites, the shadow government that continues to lift him up. Why? Because he's one of their puppets, and they need to keep him in that position. And now that we know what's going on with this whole crypto thing and all the fascist moves that he's making and how his family is profiting off of the government contracts as well as the American people like crazy, his family fortune has skyrocketed because he continues to grift off of the American people and the government this time. He's a con artist. He's not a business mogul. He's a con artist. And so that's pretty important to remember. So that's why he only paid $750. Is because he continues to lose and lose and lose. It says the Times report said that many of Trump's businesses were struggling, with the president putting more money into the firms than he was taking out, and that he earned millions abroad during his first term in the White House. It says Trump's new case against the IRS follows a wave of lawsuits filed by Trump in his personal capacity seeking damages for alleged wrongs. He accused JP Morgan and Capital One of illegally debanking him or his real estate businesses for political reasons. He also filed defamation cases against the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the BBC, all of which deny wrongdoing. Trump's suits against broadcasters ABC and CBS settled for a total of $31 million. The IRS isn't Trump's only government target in court. The president previously indicated he was seeking hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation from the U.S. Justice Department. This is the one that we were talking about before, through an administrative claim process. He claims that the department violated his rights with investigations into whether his 2016 presidential campaign colluded with Russia, which we know he is part of that Russian asset network, in connection with the 2016 election and the post-presidential retention of classified documents. Remember all those document boxes that were stacked up in his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, interesting. Trump has repeatedly remarked on how the unusual situation his claim against DOJ would create, with senior Justice Department officials who work for him would be deciding whether or not to pay for the damages, framing the situation as negotiating with himself. The president has pledged not to personally retain a settlement he won from taxpayers over the Justice Department conduct. Sure, buddy. Whatever you want to say with that. So basically, when he sues the government, it's like the best way to do it is you're going to go and sue yourself in court and then you're going to settle with yourself by taking money from somebody else and then giving it to yourself. That's basically what he's doing. And not only is he doing it with the Department of Justice, but now he wants to do it with the IRS for tens of billions of dollars at this point. So I wonder what else he'll sue for and what else he can snag from people. He's just trying to, again, rob the jar. That's what he's doing. So continuing on with the lawlessness and the corruption that's going on in the United States government. Again, I can't stress it enough. Corruption and lawlessness is not only out on the streets. It's within the White House and the government itself. Doesn't matter if it's a left or right. Doesn't matter if it's a blue or red. Doesn't matter if it's a D or an R. The fact is the government is lawless and corrupt, and everybody's in it for themselves, and they're all puppets to something much more nefarious. And the sooner that we can realize that, the better off we'll be when it comes to seeing what's going on with news. And so we get to this. You want to talk about corrupt? Well, let's talk about this. So Trump taps Kevin Warsh to lead the Federal Reserve. So we went over on Tuesday. Today is Saturday, right? Yeah, we went over on Tuesday that it kind of emerged that the front runner was going to be the BlackRock dude, the Rick Ryder guy. And so what it ended up switching over, and Trump picked Kevin Warsh, who has been in the running for a while. He was in the running the last time they were picking Fed chair as well. Obviously, he didn't get it, but this time it appears he did. Now, he still has to get approved, so we'll see if that happens, but Trump has picked this guy. So who is this guy? So Trump plans to nominate former central banker Kevin Warsh to be the next chair of the Federal Reserve. See, it's still funny to me because I thought Trump said that he was going to eliminate the Fed Reserve. Promises made, right? That's what I keep getting told. Warsh served on the Fed's governing board from 2006 to 2011 after working as an economic advisor with the George W. Bush administration. During the financial crisis, Warsh served as the Fed's primary ambassador to Wall Street, where he made good use of his contacts he made while working at Morgan Stanley. He's currently a visiting fellow at Stanford's Hoover Institution, and his wife is heiress to Estee Lauder fortune. That's right. Kevin Warsh is the son-in-law to Ron Lauder. Now, Ron Lauder's been making quite an appearance on this channel a lot recently because Ron Lauder, as we know, is a confidant to both Trump and Putin, and has continued to be an intermediary between Trump, Putin, Greenland, and Ukraine. He's one of the people that's working on making this stuff happen. We also know Ron Lauder is involved with the elites who have invested in both Greenland and Ukraine. And he's got mega connections to a lot of these people. And it just so happens to be that his son-in-law has now been picked to be the Fed chair. Coincidence, right? Just coincidence. Kevin Warsh is also connected mainly to Wall Street. That's where he has his main establishment as being a financial guy. He's all connected to the big banks and Wall Street and the trading situation over there. So that's definitely not going to play any part in driving this economy down in order to replace it, is it? No, there's no way. It says, while Trump is counting on Warsh to lower interest rates despite inflation that is well above the Fed's target, Warsh was on the opposite side of the fence during the previous term at the central bank. He frequently warned of inflation that didn't materialize, even as the unemployment rate hovered near 10%. Kevin Warsh was known as the guy who always got it wrong when he was a part of the Fed governing board and being involved with the decisions of what's going on. He was always the one that was consistently wrong on almost everything. And he's known for being the guy who is consistently wrong. We'll get to a little bit of that in a second. So if we keep going, we'll also know that Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chair pick, is in the Epstein files as well. And of course, it's sparking backlash in regards to that. It says the Justice Department released a new tranche of files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and new Fed chair pick Kevin Warsh's name was among those mentioned. And it says the new batch of Epstein files has some prominent names mentioned. The Justice Department on Friday released the rest of the files. It's not the rest of the files. There's still about 4 million of those things missing, and then everything else that has been destroyed or nobody even has heard about. So I believe that everything that we're getting in regards to that is fluff, and it's psyop drops on purpose and distractions and stuff. You're never going to hear the truth about that. I hope you guys realize that. You're never going to hear it. So if you're one of those people that's hanging on to every word of all these Epstein file drops and everything like that, you're never going to get the truth of it. You just need to accept it. It says the Justice Department released the files on Jeffrey Epstein in accordance with the Transparency Act. Again, they still haven't done it all. Among the names seen was that of Kevin Warsh, President Donald Trump's new Fed chair pick. Kevin Warsh and his wife, Jane Lauder, appeared to be in the Epstein social circle. Notably, Warsh's wife is the granddaughter of Estee Lauder and the heir to the Lauder Cosmetics industry. And it says in another instance, his name came up in a mail from Leslie Groff to Epstein, which said list of people Peggy invited to William Astor's dinner. Warsh's name came up a couple times in the latest tranche as well. Worth noting that one of the biggest people that's been involved with Epstein is Ron Lauder himself, because of the connections that he has to multiple countries. That includes the United States, that includes Israel, that includes Russia, and that includes several other European countries as well. He's heavily connected to those. He was also the one that got Jeffrey Epstein his Austrian passport. If people don't realize, so Ron Lauder has been heavily connected to the Epstein network, and we know Epstein was one of the main architects when it comes to combining the United States intelligence group, the Russian intelligence group, and the Israeli intelligence group. He's one that ran between all three of them. So this isn't one of those things that I hope people realize is not just a one thing. It's like, okay, it's just about the trafficking. Obviously that's a mega part of it, but this was much more than just trafficking. This is trafficking. This is intelligence. This is geopolitical movements. This is technology. This is spiritualism. Again, massive things of technology was involved with what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Things like trying to get involved with time travel as well as astral projection. That stuff's all connected to it and everything. So this Epstein thing is connected to the table. It's not just a thing that's sitting here on its own as something that's evil, but it's connected to everything. It's one of the things that's connected to it all, to this satanic movement that's going on. And it's connected to people like Donald Trump and Kevin Warsh and all these people like that as well. So you got to keep that in mind. It's not just a small little thing. It's much bigger than people realize. It says, who is Kevin Warsh? Trump's Fed pick has close ties to billionaire GOP donor. It says Warsh, 55, earned a law degree at Harvard University in 1995 before becoming a banker at Morgan Stanley, where later he served as vice president and executive director before joining the Bush administration in 2002 as an executive secretary at the National Economic Council. Bush nominated Warsh to serve the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors in 2006. And during the 2008 financial crisis, Warsh aided in the government's bailout of insurer AIG and assisted in JP Morgan's acquisition of Bear Stearns, an 85-year-old brokerage that collapsed as the investment banking industry failed. It says in 2002, Warsh married billionaire Jane Lauder, granddaughter of Estee Lauder, and Warsh's father-in-law is billionaire Ronald Lauder, who was a classmate of Trump's in 1960s. And later donated to Trump's presidential campaign in 2016. Lauder is reportedly credited with spurring Trump's interest in the United States buying Greenland. We know Lauder's been in the center of all that. We went over that. It says, since departing the Fed in 2011, Warsh has worked as a partner in Duquesne's family office, an investment firm launched by Stanley Druckenmiller to manage his personal wealth. Who is Druckenmiller? Well, Druckenmiller, who worked as a hedge fund manager alongside billionaire George Soros, has a net worth estimated of $7.8 billion. Druckenmiller is not only friends with Kevin Warsh, he's also friends with Donald Trump. We'll see his name pop up in just a second again, but he's also connected to none other than George Soros. But again, I was hearing, and I've been hearing and continue to get told that Trump is not a part of all this, that he's not a part of the swamp, that he's not a part of the elites and the globalists, that he's actively trying to fight back against it. But yet, everywhere I step, I continue to step on evidence that says that those people that claim that are delusional. And also, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who previously served as the governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, said Warsh is a fantastic choice to lead the world's most important central bank at this crucial time. So he's got approval from Mark Carney as well. But I thought Trump and Carney were battling it out between each other. No, not really. Not really. Let's go to this. This is from 2017. 8 years ago. How to be wrong about almost everything and maybe be Fed chair anyways. The Kevin Warsh story. Wow. Trump's shortlist for the next Federal Reserve chair, again, this was in 2017, includes the most qualified person for the job who's been on the right side of every economic argument in the last 10 years, and also Kevin Warsh. Kevin Warsh is a bad idea. Former Fed vice chair and Reagan appointee Preston Martin said at the time, and if I were on the Senate Banking Committee, I would vote against him. And on top of that, it says he warned, Kevin Warsh warned about inflation in 2006 when, excluding volatile food and energy prices, it was just 2.1%. Then he did it again in 2007 when it was just 2% by the same measure. And he did it again in 2008 when core prices were rising a relatively non-threatening 2.3%, going so far as to say that he was still not ready to relinquish any concerns on the inflation front the day after Lehman Brothers failed. So he was wrong in 2006, he was wrong in 2007, he was wrong in 2008, and then even when the financial crisis that was going on and everything flipped on its head, he was wrong about it then too. Says what Warsh wasn't worried about, though, were all the risks banks had been taking that would ultimately require them to be bailed out. A few months before the credit crunch began in 2007, Warsh even said that an important source of strength has been financial innovation, highlighting the purported benefits of credit default swaps and other derivatives that Warren Buffett would go on to call financial weapons of mass destruction. This was supposed to be Warsh's area of expertise. So while he was getting the inflation situation consistently wrong, even in a financial crisis where there was no need for it, he then decided, rather than taking a stance against the things that caused the financial crisis to even begin in the first place, he decided to say that those were financial innovations that were positive. He was literally endorsing the very things that caused the 2008 financial crisis, as he was consistently wrong on inflation the 3 years prior to it. This is the guy that is supposed to run the next Fed chair. But the bigger question, though, is whether you learn from your mistakes. Warsh didn't. He kept tilting at these inflationary windmills, even as the prospect of a second Great Depression loomed as a real possibility. In April 2009, when the economy had just lost 539,000 jobs, the unemployment rate had ballooned to 8.9%, and core inflation was a mere 1.2%. Warsh told his colleagues at the Fed that I continued to be more worried about the upside risks to inflation than the downside risks, according to the transcripts the central bank had released in its meetings. He sang the same tune 5 months later when he said that the Fed should start removing any support for the economy, even before it had substantially returned to normal, lest they let the inflationary genie out of the bottle. So the dude that consistently gets things wrong has now been picked for this. Now, one might be asking, why? Why would this guy, who has been wrong about everything that it seems for his entire career, be picked to be put in this position, especially when it appears, we don't know, but it appears we're in a position where they're moving into the next phase of dropping the economy off the cliff, dropping the financial system off the cliff. Why would they pick Kevin Warsh? Well, taking a look at Anchorage Digital. Anchorage Digital is one that runs stablecoin. If we jump down to the advisors, you'll see that Kevin Warsh is an advisor for Anchorage Digital, the people who are bringing in the dollar-backed stablecoin through Tether. And he's the one that's been picked for the Fed chair. Now, this picture was snagged January 17th of this year. He has since been removed. You'll notice that also on the board of advisors is Stanley Druckenmiller, the Soros boy. He's also connected to this as well. We jump over to Tether, the USAT, which is the stablecoin. This was from the 27th of January, so just a few days ago. And Tether announced the launch of USAT, the federally regulated dollar-backed stablecoin made in America. So just so happens to be that the guy who's an advisor of this thing is now going to be going to the Fed chair as soon as Tether launches the USA stablecoin. Says Tether, the largest company in the digital asset industry, today announces the official launch of USAT, the federally regulated dollar-backed stablecoin developed specifically to operate within the United States' new federal stablecoin framework established under the Genius Act. The issuer of USAT is Anchorage Digital Bank, North America's first federally regulated stablecoin issuer. Now it makes sense. USAT is issued by Anchorage Digital Bank and is available to institutions and platforms alike. USAT has been designated to operate within the Genius Act's new federal stablecoin framework. U.S. regulated exchanges and banking partners are being lined up to support broad access to USAT across the American financial ecosystem. Cantor Fitzgerald serves as the designated reserve custodian and preferred primary dealer, ensuring secure asset management and clear visibility into reserves from day one. Who is Cantor Fitzgerald, you might be asking? Howard Lutnick gives top Cantor Fitzgerald jobs to his sons, Brandon and Kyle. If you guys don't know, Howard Lutnick is Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary. It's remarkable, man. The two oldest sons of billionaire Howard Lutnick, the former chief officer of Cantor Fitzgerald. So he was the former chief officer. And now the Commerce Secretary for Donald Trump, are both still in their 20s, but have suddenly found themselves with the level of influence rarely wielded in Wall Street. Insiders expect that they will soon take ownership as well as control. They also cement the Lutnick's family control over a group with more than 14,000 employees that the secretary has pledged to keep separate during his time at Trump's cabinet. That's a lie. Where key decisions over tariffs and trade could impact the firm's deals and clients. You can't make this stuff up. This is how it's operating. It's a club. It is 100% a club. And the move for the next Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, clearly has everything to do with getting things set up for the stablecoin transition that we know Donald Trump has been working on. Now it's all starting to make a lot more sense. This is the club. This is the establishment of the satanic table that sits above it all. The very select group of families that have direct access to Satan himself and are getting their marching orders from him in order to fight against the prophecy that God has told us, which has already happened for him. This is the pride of Satan. This is the pride of the elites, the Luciferians. And and everything is connected. That's the thing that sometimes is hard to understand, because sometimes things appear to be separate. Like we were talking about the Epstein thing. That appears to be like it's just its own thing over here that the elites would come and go for when they wanted to get involved with things that we're not going to get into details about. But the fact is that's not sitting over here. The Epstein network is sitting centrally in the middle of all of this, because he was one of the main players that was connecting all these countries and all these elites together. Whether it's things for satanic stuff, whether it's things for blackmail, whether it's for geopolitical, whether it's for technology, whether it's for magic and spirituality, whether it's for finance, all these things are connected. And again, the major players that Epstein was connected to are some of the biggest ones that we see today when it comes to the United States, Russia, and Israel right now. And all these things are moving pieces to make all this happen. So when we're talking about a club, sometimes we throw it around as a joke, but sometimes we forget that it actually really is a club. And so when moves like this happen, it's not a coincidence that they're all connected to each other. This stuff is, it is spiritually bankrupt to the core. And with all of that in mind, knowing this stuff, having, again, Mount Everest of evidence, we have movements under the flag of Christian that are doing everything that they possibly can, not only to defend the very same people that are at the center of all of this, but at the same time, they're brainwashing other Christians to go along with it, pulling them from biblical foundation into satanic admiration. And they don't even realize it. They don't even realize it. That's how good Satan is. That's how clever he is he's doing this. And Christians and pastors will fight to the death on a hill to defend the very same people that are participating in Satan's takeover of this world. Why? Pick a reason. Pick a reason. That's why I'm one of those people that I will stand on that hill and die to be vocal against this stuff, because I have seen too much. And it cannot be ignored. Let's talk fascism. How about that? Trump administration takes another stake in rare earth sector. The administration announced a $1.6 billion deal with USA Rare Earth, the firm that also does business with Cantor Fitzgerald, which is run by the sons of President Trump's Commerce Secretary. So again, government taking stake in private company is literally the very underlying condition of fascism. It's corporatism. It's combining of government and private. And Trump's administration has done that more times than I can actually count. So the Trump administration announced on Monday that it had agreed to extend up to $277 million in direct funding and up to $1.3 billion in loans to USA Rare Earth Inc., a mining and manufacturing group to help develop its supply chain for rare earth metals and magnets. The deal adds to the administration's growing portfolio of equity stakes in private companies. The Commerce Department, which arranged the financing through a semiconductor investment program set up during the Biden administration, one big club, doesn't matter if it's left or right, said it had signed a non-binding letter of intent to provide the funding subject to further due diligence and approvals. On Monday, the company also announced that it had raised $1.5 billion through a consortium of private investors. For that transaction, Cantor Fitzgerald, a Wall Street firm formerly headed by Mr. Lutnick, now his sons, acted as the lead placement agent, the company said. The overlap between the Trump administration and Cantor Fitzgerald has recently been under scrutiny by Democratic lawmakers and others after revelations by the New York Times and said that the Wall Street firm profited off several projects Mr. Lutnick promoted in his official role as Commerce Secretary. Mr. Lutnick has divested from Cantor Fitzgerald, but the firm is now led by two of his sons. And again, this is the same thing the same runaround that we get with the Trump stuff, because Trump continues to invest and profit off of government contracts and cryptocurrencies and off the backs of Americans, but they claim that he's not the one profiting off of it. The problem is the family name absolutely is, because it's his family that's making all that money. Where do you think that money is going? It's not the family's keeping it and they're just keeping Trump over here by himself. He's benefiting from it too, but technicalities rear their heads just like it does with Lutnick here. You can take the same thing back to what was going on with Biden. People think that, it's Biden's son, Hunter Biden. He's the one that's profiting out. Well, so is Biden himself. It's the same thing. That's what the government does. They continue to profit off this stuff, and they go through technicalities in order to do it, but it doesn't matter. If your family's profiting off of all this stuff, so are you. This is how it goes. It's corruption. It's lawlessness. Here it is. The Trump administration has now announced deals to take equity stakes in at least 10 private companies, an unusual strategy for a Republican administration. So, more fascism coming in on this as well. Let's keep going. U.S. to add 65,000 seasonal guest worker visas for 2026. From the very same guy who says that he's trying to get all the immigrants out. What's he doing? He's doubling the amount of immigrants that are coming in. For all the people that are still MAGA this and MAGA that and proud to be MAGA and support Trump, are you tired of getting lied to yet? I'm just curious. Or have you still continued to tell yourself that he's not lying and everything is good? It says Trump's administration will add some 65,000 H-2B seasonal guest worker visas through September 30th, the Federal Register notice said, saying that the visas would be available to employers at risk of severe financial hardship due to the lack of U.S. labor. The move roughly doubles the 66,000 visas available each year to businesses such as construction, hospitality, landscaping, and seafood processing, in a recognition that U.S. employers in those industries could be struggling to find workers. Where do I even begin on this? Where do I even begin? Oh my goodness. It's just remarkable. So we're gonna ship out. We're gonna ship out all these people from this country, which you claim is in order to allow Americans to get better jobs and to actually come out of unemployment and to gain some of those jobs. And then at the same time, you're going to double the amount of foreign workers to come in on visas to take the very same jobs that you just shipped out all of those other people that you said were opening up jobs for Americans. But now you're going to bring in more foreign people to replace. Do you guys see the insanity here? Do you guys see the insanity? How it doesn't make sense? There's no rhyme. It doesn't make sense. There's no way that you can connect these things to make it work. This is the insanity of the world that we live in now. But this is it. How about this? Trump PAC to potential donors, fill out this survey or ICE might track you down. It says, don't tell me you're an illegal alien. The Political Action Committee fundraising email says, this is your final moment to prove me wrong. It says, an email from Trump's leadership, Political Action Committee, never surrender. It says, Immigration and Custom Enforcement agent will track down recipients if they don't fill out a citizens only survey, and they have to donate to submit it. Now, obviously, this isn't real as the point of if you don't fill it out that they'll actually come and get you type of thing. But it's how they're going about this stuff is sick. Says the fundraising email sent Tuesday comes just days after federal immigration enforcement agents shot and killed Alex Preddy, as well as Nicole Good in Minneapolis. Says, are you a proud American citizen or does ICE need to come and track you down? Reads the email with the subject line, are you an illegal alien? This is your final moment to prove me wrong, the email continues. Trump leadership PAC has received coverage for what critics call manipulative fundraising tactics. In them, Trump has teased rebate checks from Doge cuts, which he claims that he never said. On Monday, the group sent an email asking recipients to verify the spelling of their name before I sign your name on a tariff check. Another thing which Trump has claimed that he never said. One of the multiple emails to the same effect sent this month. Says that is not to say it's illegal. Lisa Gilbert, correspondent of Public Citizen nonprofit organization, called the fundraising appeal tone deaf and chilling, but said that the appeal didn't raise any legal concerns. So again, it's not a real threat and it's not illegal, but yet he's putting this stuff out there where he's saying, you know, ICE will come and get you. You're an illegal alien if you don't fill out this survey. As the email says, it's from Donald J. Trump. At the bottom of the email, it states that the message was paid for by Never Surrender, Inc., Trump's current political vehicle of choice, and the direct successor committee to his presidential campaign committee. Clicking the Take Citizens Only Survey button directs recipients to a web form that asks viewers about their citizenship. The illegal alien option directs respondents to end survey immediately. It says to submit the form, you must pay at least $26. So you take a survey and then you have to pay $26 to submit it, with donation options extending up to $3,300. Interesting number that they chose there, 3,300. There's also an option to make it a monthly recurring donation. And this is the email. I've seen multiple people who have received this email. It says, I reached out last week to my citizens only survey. Your file says that you're a top MAGA patriot, but my records to my survey still say response pending. Don't tell me you're an illegal alien. That cannot be true. This is your final moment to prove me wrong. Are you a proud American citizen or does ICE need to come track you down? Take citizens only survey. This is manipulation. It's fear. You know how many people, again, there are still people that receive emails from a Nigerian prince who has been kicked out of his country and needs $600 in order for him to go back to his country to reclaim the crown, which then he'll send you $6 million in response once he does that. People still fall for those emails. How many people are going to get this email and fall for it, thinking that if they don't fill this out and send money, that they will get taken by ICE? A lot of people will. I can guarantee it. I can guarantee a lot of people will still. Oh, the corruption that it's happening right now is just, it's skyrocketing to the moon. It just continues to move forward. The rich get richer, poor get poorer. Everybody's lying, everybody's corrupt, everybody's moving this stuff forward towards the plan that Satan wants, but the plan that we know that God's ultimately already accounted for. So we don't have to worry as Christians. But that doesn't mean that we turned a blind eye to it. That doesn't mean we endorse it. That doesn't mean we excuse it. That doesn't mean that we just, the thing that I see a lot, and it shows the hypocrisy, is the very same people who leave comments on all these Christian videos and stuff when Biden was in presidency continued to talk about the corruption and how bad he is and all these things, which we know he is. But the moment that Trump comes into office and things get pointed out that are bad about Trump, the very same people that were going ham criticizing Biden are the very same people that says, "Why are you worrying? God's in control. It doesn't really matter. He put Trump in office." And it's because that's how they're justifying what's going on, because now it's their guy that's in place. And so any criticism is, "Oh, well, that's God's pick and God's in control. So why are you worrying?" It's like, nobody's worrying. We're pointing out the same corruption, just like we were pointing out the corruption during Biden. You were okay trashing Biden. You never mentioned anything about God being in control then. You were in full panic mode. But now because it's Trump, oh, well, now we got to calm down. We need to calm down. It's hypocrisy. Why are we being hypocritical as Christians? Again, my whole point on this is the Bible says that we are to stand on truth no matter what. Well, the no matter what part sure seems like that applies to the political system as well. So if we're standing on truth no matter what, that means that we're pointing out the corruption for both sides, not just one, and then making excuses for the other. That's why we don't need to fall into political psychosis like so many people have. All right. Let's go ahead and start moving into geopolitical stuff. There's been a lot of movement with geopolitics. We got caught up. If you look at the news cycle, interesting timing that big news things dropped that are taking up the news cycle when there's been a swath of geopolitical stuff that's happening, including this. The Pentagon has given China access to its systems for over a decade. But the narrative says that they're at war. So why would the Pentagon do this? It says the Department of Defense is letting Beijing into its most critical systems, not through a breach, but by design. On July 15th, the ProPublica investigation revealed that the DoD has outsourced some of its most sensitive IT maintenance to Microsoft engineers located in mainland China, granting them access to Pentagon systems for nearly a decade. Now, again, if you're one of those people that believes the narrative that China and the United States are at war and they don't like each other, and China's for globalism and Trump is not, and the back and forth and everything like that, this would confuse you. You're not sure how to respond to this. But for those of us who don't believe in that narrative and do believe that they're all working together to push towards a new world order, this is just like so? Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It does. It says the DoD program allowed Microsoft employed engineers based in China to help maintain and gain access to the department's cloud computing systems. These engineers may have access to high impact level data, including information related to military operations, while under the supervision of so-called digital escorts. The escorts were U.S. government personnel who were underqualified for the role. Yeah. And then most of this is actually about, the narrative and how they need to stop doing this. And Washington must strengthen its cyber defenses. I don't know if people saw that, but the chief cyber guy during the Doge situation, inputted highly sensitive United States material into a public version of ChatGPT, and yeah, it's it's ridiculous. But yeah, so this is just confirmation that indeed the Pentagon and China are working together. They're collaborating together. Again, this should not shock us if we don't believe the narrative. If you do believe the narrative, I really hope that you're starting to see that that narrative is false and it's there to keep you going in the wrong direction and chasing your tail, rather than actually seeing that these people are working together. Again, Trump loves Xi. They're friends. And Trump looks up to Xi. Trump wants to be like Xi. I hope people realize that. Sticking with geopolitical, Venezuelan lawmakers approve sweeping overhaul of oil sector. Yes, we may have lost track that there's still stuff going on in Venezuela because of everything else that's going on, but there still is indeed things going on in Venezuela. This is bowing to Trump administration pressure. The new legislation improves conditions for foreign oil companies and opens the way to slash taxes that they pay. Venezuelan National Assembly on Thursday approved a sweeping overhaul of legislation governing the oil industry, granting foreign oil companies greater control over operations and potentially slashing the royalties they pay to the government. The move showcases how experts say the Trump administration has returned to an era of gunboat diplomacy in which the United States has wielded its military superiority to coerce Latin American nations into yielding to Washington's priorities. The U.S. military, they say, captured, kidnapped Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela's authoritarian leader, this month and replaced him with Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. Again, I hope people realize that taking Maduro out did nothing, because it's his entire regime is still fully in control there. So this idea that there's much more to all this that's going on. It says Delcy faced with U.S. threats that she could meet the same fate, Ms. Rodriguez has rushed to meet demands to open the oil industry to the greater U.S. involvement. The new legislation gives foreign companies clear operational control over production ventures, effectively relegating, the national oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela, to secondary status. It also opens the way for the authorities to sharply reduce the royalties and taxes paid to Venezuela's government, and allows the companies to resolve disputes in international venues instead of doing so in Venezuela's legal system. So this is basically opening up the door. This is the next step of taking the oil reserves there. They're opening up the door by making it so these companies can come in, grab much more control, and pay less taxes to the Venezuelan government in order to take the contents from Venezuela. So this is, again, a situation where we're starting to see the transfer of power and finance to private corporations, which was basically one of the main things that they needed to get done in Venezuela to move forward with what they call the Monroe Doctrine, the Western Hemisphere situation. As still, the changes did not go as far as some investors had wanted, leaving Petróleos de Venezuela under the state control instead of breaking it up or privatizing it. So moving forward again, where the private oil sectors, one of the elites of the elites there, making even more money, gaining more power in Venezuela, and paying less taxes to Venezuela. Interesting, because I thought the whole thing that Trump was promising in regards to this was it was going to benefit the people of Venezuela, but now we're getting to the point where it's actually going to be less money going into Venezuela, which we know that money was never going to see the people anyways. It was going to go where it's been going the whole time, because it's still Maduro's regime that's in full control down there. So again, what all has changed really in regards to this? Trump and his friends are receiving more money by going and taking from Venezuela, and the little people receive nothing. That's all that's changed so far. We'll wait and see what tomorrow brings, but as of now, that's all that's changed. Switching over to Cuba, because we know that's another one of the things that needs to happen for this Monroe Doctrine, Western Hemisphere situation. It says Trump declares a national emergency and threatens tariffs on countries that supply oil to Cuba. Says the U.S. President Trump signed this Thursday an executive order that declares a national emergency due to the alleged threat that Cuba represents to the security of the United States, establishing a system of tariffs against any country that supplies oil to the island, in a move that could further suffocate the Cuban economy in the midst of an unprecedented energy crisis. The executive order published by the White House considers that the policies, practices, and actions of the government of Cuba constitute an unusual, extraordinary threat to national security and U.S. foreign policy, thus justifying the declaration of national emergency that comes into effect at 12:01 a.m. on January 30th. So it's now officially in effect. We were waiting for this. We heard some whispers last week. I think it was last week. We heard some whispers last week that Trump was mulling over the idea of putting up an oil blockade for Cuba. Well, it looks like those whispers were indeed correct, because here it is. And so we're moving into phase 2 of the United States taking over Cuba. Anybody shocked by this? You shouldn't be. It's what we were watching. This was the next one that we were waiting for after Venezuela. Why do we know that? Because when we were digging into the information regarding the Ron Lauder connection, the Greenland connection, the Venezuela connection, the Russian connection, when we were looking into that, we heard confirmation by a Russian politician that confirmed that the United States and Russia were working on a deal to take Venezuela, and then he confirmed that after Venezuela, Trump was going to go ahead and take Cuba. And so looks like that is actually happening right now. So according to the document, the measure authorizes the imposition of additional tariffs ad valorem on imports of goods from countries that directly or indirectly sell or supply crude oil or derived products from Cuba. Now, if we jump down, it talks about Mexico. It says the executive order places Mexico in a particularly delicate position. Just 2 days before the signing of the decree, President Sheinbaum had defended the shipment of Mexican oil to Cuba as a sovereign decision, which has been happening for many years for humanitarian reasons, referring to the historic blockade suffered by the island. We know that that's not true. We know it has nothing to do with humanitarian reasons. We know that Claudia Sheinbaum, who's one of the people that does the political leading of the cartels, is, we got to protect the Cuban people. That's why we're sending oil. That has nothing to do with that. So that's a lie. We know that's a lie. But we do know that Mexico is sending oil into Cuba. It says, however, the threat of tariffs could have devastating consequences for Mexico, whose exports to the U.S. market account for approximately 63% of its foreign trade. According to recent reports, Mexican oil shipments to Cuba had already decreased significantly in recent months, going from about 20,000 barrels per day in early 2025 to approximately 7,000 barrels in recent months. So keep in mind that Mexico is also on the list of things that Trump has said that he's going to take care of. But I think Cuba is the next target, personally, from what we're watching. So, again, with all the things that are going on, don't lose track of what's happening when it comes to geopolitical movements. Again, we've been watching a lot of what's going on with China and South Korea. South Korea is really moving into the arms of China right now. We know what's going on with that. We're still waiting to see what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. I still think we're going to get to the point where Ukraine's going to get handed over to Russia. How, when, I'm not sure, but I still do believe that. I could be wrong. That's just my view of it right now from what we know. And then we've got moves happening here on the Western side of things when it comes to Venezuela stuff. We know that Cuba's next on that list. There's still the Greenland situation, even though we're not getting a whole lot of information about that right now. Don't forget that that's still there. We also know with Mexico, that's another part of trying to accomplish this stuff. But there's another aspect as well that we've been waiting for. And it just got a whole lot closer. Panama Canal. Keep in mind, guys, that Trump has been wanting to get the Panama Canal too. And we just got this. This is Panama court kicks Hong Kong's C.K. Hutchinson out of the canal ports. That's what was been stopping the United States from taking the Panama Canal, was because Hong Kong's private export company has been in control of those. Well, now the Panama court is kicking them out. Exactly what Trump wants. This ruling comes down after Donald Trump's vow to take back control of shipping lane and reassert U.S. influence in the region. You just cannot make this up. And again, is anybody surprised by this? We shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be caught off guard. We knew that something was going to happen. It was only a matter of time. And here it is. It says Panama's top court has annulled a contract for a unit of a Hong Kong company to operate a pair of ports on the country's famous canal, casting doubt over a deal to sell the terminals and boosting Trump's efforts to reassert U.S. influence in the region. Monroe Doctrine, Hemisphere. In a unanimous ruling published late on Thursday, the Supreme Court said that the concession for a unit of C.K. Hutchinson's holdings to run the port at either end of the Panama Canal was unconstitutional. Out of nowhere. We're talking over 30 years of working there. Now, all of a sudden, now, of all times, now, the Panama court says it's unconstitutional. Come on. Come on. You can't make this stuff up. It says the ruling will delight the U.S. president who vowed last year to take back control of the canal connecting the Pacific and Caribbean, and it criticized Chinese influence over the waterway, of course. It says in a statement early on Friday, Panama's president, Jose Raul Mulino, and this is where it gets, again, you can't write this stuff better. Panama's president, Jose Raul Mulino, said Danish shipping giant A.P. Møller-Maersk would run the ports on an interim basis once the ruling takes effect. Danish, Denmark, Greenland will be taking control of the Panama Canal ports that they just kicked China out of. So now, China's getting moved out from the Panama Canal. And then a Danish company that's connected to Denmark, which we know has control over Greenland, is taking its place. You can't make this stuff up. It's funny. In the meantime, there would be a period of continuity of the current operator with no operational change. Then there will be a transition period culminating in a new concession under terms and conditions favorable to the country. APM Terminals, a unit of Maersk, confirmed its willingness to temporarily operate both terminals in a statement. Temporarily. I wonder who's going to take over from there. C.K. Hutchinson has operated the ports at Balboa and Cristobal for nearly 30 years. So again, after 30 years, all of a sudden, at this moment in time, when we know that there's transition happening, it's unconstitutional. After the contract was extended for another 25 years in 2021. Wow. Again, it's just so easy to see if we really pay attention. And it says Maersk to take over Panama Canal port operations from HK Firm. Danish firm Maersk will temporarily take control of 2 ports on the Panama Canal from Hong Kong company CK Hutchinson, whose concession has been annulled, the Panama Maritime Authority said Friday. Panama's Supreme Court on Thursday invalidated Hutchinson's contract following repeated threats from Donald Trump that the United States would seek to reclaim the waterway he said was effectively being controlled by China. It's remarkable to watch these things move, because it's just we pay attention to these little moves. Again, I know these little moves aren't things that get us excited. They're not sensational. They're not clickbait stuff. Again, if I was to just put out a random video where I said Hong Kong company kicked out of Panama Canal, Danish company takes over. If I was to put out a video that said that on there, nobody would click on it. Nobody cares, because it's just one of those things where it's like, so what? It's a little logistical thing. What does that have to do with anything? But the thing is we talk about these little moves like that all the time because they actually lead up to the big stuff. And when the big stuff does happen, we expect it because we were watching those little moves lead up to it. We're not caught off guard. And so when this stuff starts happening and say, a month from now, all of a sudden we get this thing where United States takes control of Panama Canal, everybody else is going to be going, oh my goodness, did you guys see it? Who saw this coming? And we're going to be sitting there going, yeah, okay, we saw that. And we're going to be moving on to the next thing because we're looking at all the other little moves that are leading up to that next big thing. And so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, while it's not flashy, it doesn't move the needle. It's not something that we get all crazy about and excited about, like all the big, flashy stuff out there with the exclamation points and everything. These little things really do stack up to the point of being what a watchman is supposed to be. We're watchmen not to be shocked by when things happen or to try and guess dates of when things are going to happen or try to force feed prophecy into world events and stuff. That's not being a watchman. A watchman is paying attention to these things during these last days that are leading to prophetic events that will happen post-rapture into the day of the Lord. But we're not caught off guard when these big things do happen. And I don't know about you guys. I don't think we've necessarily been caught off guard by a lot of things. There's some stuff that comes through that's out of left field. Don't get me wrong. And it's like, where did that come from? But for the most part, I don't think we've been really caught off guard. Have we really been surprised? Honestly, have you guys really been surprised by a lot of the stuff that's been happening? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. That's how I view it. So again, that's why these little things like that, when you see something like Panama Canal after 30 years declares Hong Kong company unconstitutional, kicks them out of Panama, and then a Denmark company comes in, and we know that that's connected to the whole Greenland situation. That's like, oh boy, to me. Boring for a lot of people, but it's oh boy to me. And so, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but anyways. All right, let's go ahead and keep going with the geopolitical. And we have Trump officials met group pushing Alberta independence from Canada. We know Canada is one of those things that Trump wants to get connected to all this Western Hemisphere Monroe Doctrine stuff as well. And so it says separatists from oil-rich province tried to capitalize on friction between White House and Mark Carney. Says the Trump administration has held covert meetings with fringe separatists from Canada's oil-rich province in Alberta as rifts deepen between Washington and Ottawa. Leaders of the Alberta Prosperity Project, a group of far-right separatists who want the Western province to become independent, met the United States Department officials in Washington 3 times since April of last year, according to people familiar with the talks. They are seeking another meeting next month with state and treasury officials to ask for $500 billion credit facility to help bankroll the province in an independence referendum yet to be called is passed. Says he claimed that he had a much stronger relationship with the Trump administration than Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. That's the Jeff Rath. He's the legal counsel for this group of separatists, and he has a much stronger connection with the Trump administration and Mark Carney. This might be something, just throwing it out there. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying this is how it's going to happen because this is too early to tell. It's way too early to tell. But we might see a situation where regions of Canada starts falling. And then eventually the whole thing gets swooped up. It might not be a case of all of a sudden Canada's, connected like we've been hearing. It might be a case of regions because there are some regions in Canada that they're not happy with the Canadian government. And so this might be a case of piece by piece. But I don't know. That's just something that I'm throwing out there. Says the context coincide with the deterioration in relations between the U.S. and Canada. Trump and Carney clashed last week at the Canadian premier suggested Washington was creating a rupture in the world order. We went over that as well. It says the U.S. was unlikely to provide any material support to the fringe separatist movement, according to people familiar with the U.S. position, but the conversations underline the tensions between Washington and Carney's federal government in Ottawa. Carlo Dade from the Canada West Foundation, a conservative think tank in Calgary, described the separatist leader as attention seekers. He added that the Americans are more than happy to continue to play Canadians off of each other. Again, like I said, that's kind of where I'm getting the idea that they might try and go piece by piece as opposed to the whole thing. It says Besant caused a flurry of excitement among Alberta separatists last week when he described the province, the single biggest source of foreign oil in the American market, as a natural partner for the United States. That's definitely worth paying attention to. It says the APP, which is the group, separatist group, is attempting to gather 177,000 signatures to bring an independence petition to the legislature by May. It declined to say how many it has gathered to date, which probably isn't too many if they're hiding it. The talks will nonetheless stoke existing concerns of meddling in Canadian domestic affairs by the Trump administration and its proxies. It also says the Alberta Forever Canada campaign, a counter petition to the opposing independence, received 438,000 signatures by December deadline last year. So something to watch. Canada seems to be, from the public side of things, put on the back burner when it comes to acquisition. But don't forget that that's still something that they are wanting to accomplish. So let's keep going. Like I said, a lot of stuff coming out, a lot of news, a lot of moves coming out in regards to the geopolitical situation, including EU deploys first satellite service in bid to limit U.S. dependence. Now, this is something that's lining up with the divide between the United States and Europe. We're watching heavily on the decline of Europe. Europe is just falling apart at the seams right now. And we know that the final plug to the final piece to pull to watch the whole thing fall apart is probably the NATO situation. And so keeping an eye on what the U.S. is going to do with NATO, who is basically the one holding NATO together. If the United States leaves NATO, that whole thing is going to fall apart. And then the EU is open season at that point for countries to start dividing amongst themselves, economies to start collapsing, Russia to start making moves into Ukraine, and then further into other old USSR, Soviet Union countries at that point. So again, I think that's what we're waiting for, is NATO and Europe. I think once that happens, everything is going to start rolling. That's going to be a snowball going down a mountain that's going to be collecting snow on its way. And so when we continue to see more stuff like this, where the EU is backing further away from the United States and relying more on themselves, it goes to show that that divide is getting wider, leading us closer to eventually what I think we'll see with NATO and EU. This is the European Union has switched on parts of its homegrown secure satellite communications network for the first time as part of a 10.6 billion euro push to provide an alternative to Starlink and wean itself off of U.S. support amid growing tensions. Elements of the IRIS-2 and GovSatcom network began limited operations last week for the government and military use. Defense and Space Commissioner Andrius Kubilius, Andrius Kubilius, said at the European Space Conference in Brussels on Tuesday. All member states can now have access to sovereign satellite communications, military and government, secure and encrypted, built in Europe, operated in Europe, under European control. Kubelis said, experts are saying it could be better than Starlink. This is our ambition. It says the geopolitical developments are demanding us to speed up and to give those services, he said, adding that such systems are a crucial element of so-called strategic enablers, high-end military capabilities that Europe leans heavily on the U.S. for, which means they're speeding this up to disconnect from the United States, making them more independent, which is only driving that wedge between them even further. And again, I think once that goes, you're going to start seeing Russia make moves at that point as well. Now we move into when it comes to the shift, the geopolitical shift that we're watching, which again, I thought 2026 was going to be the year that we start seeing geopolitical movement happen. And my, oh my, is it starting off strong. We have this as well. This is Gutierrez warns of UN's imminent financial collapse. You want to talk about shifting the geopolitical power around the world? Well, the UN's pointless at this point, so why not just kick him to the side, kick him to the curb? It says the UN chief has told member states that the organization is at risk of imminent financial collapse, citing unpaid fees and budget rule that forces the global body to return unspent money, a letter seen by Reuters on Friday showed. UN Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez has repeatedly spoken about the organization's worsening liquidity crisis, but this is his starkest warning yet, and it comes as its main contributor, the United States, is retreating from multilateralism on numerous fronts. Says the crisis is deepening, threatening program delivery and risking financial collapse, and the situation will deteriorate further in the near future, Gutierrez wrote in a letter to ambassadors dated January 28th. Says the U.S. has slashed voluntary funding to the UN agencies and refused to make mandatory payments to its regular and peacekeeping budgets. Pay attention to the two people that are causing the collapse of the UN. It says under UN rules, contributions depend on the size of the economy of each member state. The U.S. accounts for 22% of the core budget, followed by China with 20%. But by the end of 2025, there was a record $1.57 billion in outstanding dues, Gutierrez said, without naming the nations that owed them. 42% of the U.S. UN budget comes from the United States and China. And those are the two that aren't paying their dues. I mean, come on. Are we really going to sit here and pretend like this isn't a joint endeavor to remove the UN from the picture, which is pointless at this point? The UN has ran its course. It's ran its course for a while ago. It's been pointless for a very long time. But still, for us to transition, we got to get rid of them. And so who are the two countries that are causing it? United States and China. You would think if they're at war, one or the other would help continue to finance the UN in order to, stick it to the other one. But no, it's those two working together. Similar to like what George Soros said in 2011 after the 2008 crash, where he said this is a planned and organized destruction of the United States dollar, with China being the engine. We're kind of seeing the same thing here with the elimination of the UN. Interesting. Now I get a little update on this. It says Board of Peace trademark filings reveal its murky legal status. This is where things are like not making sense. It says the Board of Peace trademarks are not owned by the organization itself, but by the United States Patent and Trademark Office, marking an unprecedented use of executive branch power to protect rights of an ambiguously defined supranational entity. This is not Trump owning the Board of Peace trademarks. This is not a Trump company owning the Board of Peace trademarks. This is literally the United States Patent and Trademark Office that owns the Board of Peace trademarks. This is something that's never happened in the history of the United States. It doesn't make any sense. It says an investigation reveals that Donald Trump's Board of Peace, ratified last week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, has filed applications for 2 trademarks with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. This would not be unusual except for the fact that the organization, which has no legally defined status, we'll get to that in just a second, is not the holder of the trademarks. The marks are owned by the Patent Office itself, marking an unprecedented use of executive branch power to protect the rights of an ambiguously defined supranational entity. It says the Board of Peace was created as a result of the United Nations Security Council. That's also something to keep in mind, that the Board of Peace, the only way that it could have came forward is by the UN allowing it to go through in that way. So what you're watching is a passing of the baton. And I hope people realize that it's passing on to a different group. But the only thing is this group is not, there's no legality to it. There's nothing that actually defines it as anything. That's where the confusion of all this stuff is. I know everybody's trying to figure out what this Board of Peace thing is and how it works and what they're going to do and what it'll eventually become, because I know it's one of those flashy things to talk about. But the problem is nobody has a clue what they're talking about, because there's nothing out there that actually defines what this thing is. There's nothing. We don't know anything about it. Nothing. So we can sit here and talk about this stuff till the red heifers come home, but we're just going to be talking about something that has no basis, because there's nothing for us to look at. Why? Because it's not legally established in any way, shape, or form anywhere. It's just a thing. And nobody actually owns the trademarks to this thing either, because it's the United States Patent Office that owns it, which has never been done in the history of ever. This is why it's like I'm sitting here. It's like, okay, everybody's talking about this thing, but nobody's saying anything. You're just saying words with nothing to substantiate it. That's why, I get people asking, why haven't you done anything on the Board of Peace? I'm giving updates as things come out, but there's nothing for me to talk about. There's no foundation to this thing. That's why we just gotta hold on and just wait. We gotta see what's going on. Again, as updates come out, I'll try and give you what I can. But again, there's nothing of substance here. And so it says the Board of Peace was created as a result of the United Nations Security Council adopted resolution of 2803 on November 17, 2025, which authorized the organization as a transitional administration with international legal personality intended to set the framework and coordinate funding for the redevelopment of Gaza. However, the organizational charter revealed in Davos is light on details and makes no mention of Gaza. That's what I mean. We don't know anything about this. So far, the Board of Peace has not been registered as a legal entity. There's been nothing released about what they are, except for that presentation about Techno Gaza, and that's not even connected to the resolution document that connects the Board of Peace to the United Nations. And so it says it has not been registered as a legal entity in the United States or any other country, raising questions about how it's processing the voluntary $1 billion fees member countries are being asked to pro-offer. Some have speculated that Trump himself may be collecting these fees. However, as a United States individual, he would be subject to United States law, which we know that doesn't apply to anything. So that's not true. It says the group, Trump does whatever he wants to whatever with the law. It says the group status is a purely supernatural organization seems to be an intentional decision to isolate the Board of Peace from the jurisdiction of any country. Desire to avoid congressional oversight may also be a factor. The Board of Peace mimics a treaty organization in many ways, with the United States in the position of convener. However, ratification of participation in a treaty organization requires a supermajority vote by the Senate rather than be subject to that constraint. Trump has authorized participation in the Board of Peace entirely within the executive branch. On January 16, 2026, Trump signed Executive Order 1437.5, designating the Board of Peace as a public international organization entitled to enjoy certain privileges, exemptions, and immunities. Again, we're just shooting into the wind on what all that means. It says the order asserts that the organization is covered under the International Organizations Immunity Act, first passed in 1945. The organization's lack of a registered legal entity left open the thorny question of who will hold its trademarks. The solution, at least for now, was another and apparently unprecedented executive branch fix: have the government itself hold the trademarks on behalf of the Board of Peace at Trump's behest. This is where nothing makes sense. It's not actually a registered legal entity anywhere. The United States Patent Office is holding the trademarks on behalf of the Board of Peace, but yet at the same time, it's not actually registered with the United States, which means that they can't trademark it, but yet they have. And again, none of this is making sense. I wish I could explain it to you better. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. This is entirely shadow and uncharted waters. This is new stuff that we've never seen before, and stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody has a clue of what that is, myself included, on how this is all working. But yet it's still moving forward. Doesn't make sense. It says 2 trademark applications, one filed on December 30th, 2025 for the Board of Peace name, and another on January 21st, 2026 for its logo graphic, list the United States Patent and Trademark Office as its owner. The Trademark Office owns only 7 other trademarks, and all of them are the Patent Office specific names and logos themselves. We jump down, it says an experienced DC area patent office attorney we contacted told us, I've never seen anything like this. I have no idea how or why the patent office would be the owner of these 2 applications or have had the requisite bona fide intent to use the marks in commerce, which is required under Section 1B of the Lanham Act. I don't see how these applications could be valid. And again, I think that's what we must operate under as of right now when it comes to this, because of how things are moving forward with it and how it's not actually anywhere. We have to go under the notion that this entire Board of Peace isn't even actually a valid group as of yet that we know of. There's nothing that makes them actually valid other than a group of people coming together, signing something, and saying that they're going to do stuff. But there's nothing that actually anchors them to anything so far that we know of. And so that's why this is weird. That's why I can't really explain or comment or talk about anything regarding it, because there's nothing really to talk. I'd just be making stuff up and throwing it against the wall, like pretty much everybody else that's talking about the Board of Peace right now. So we just got to wait and see what comes from it. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. Trump officials bypass Congress to push billions in weapons aid to Israel. The move was the third time the Trump administration has tried to expedite arms shipments to Israel by going around the review process for weapon sales. So we have another case of lawlessness here, where Trump is bypassing congressional approval, which is by law what he's supposed to do, completely bypassing it for the third time in order to send a giant load of weapons to Israel. So the State Department announced on Friday it was planning to send Israel more than $6.5 billion of weapons aid that included Apache attack helicopters and combat land vehicles, bypassing a congressional review process. The package of four, again, this is just a case of this administration does whatever they want. Who cares about law? Who cares about the Constitution? It's just over and over and over again, just bypassing what they're supposed to be doing. Says the packages of 4 weapon systems has been under review for months by the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The State Department is supposed to wait for approval from the 2 top members of each of those committees before announcing the aid, but in this case, the department under Secretary of State Marco Rubio circumvented the norm. It was the third time that the Trump administration has bypassed this part of the congressional process, called for informal review to send weapons to Israel. So this is another case of just, again, bypassing Congress, which Congress is pointless. It's just what it is. Just doing what they're doing, acting as dictator and authoritarian, and sending weapons to Israel, which makes you wonder is if something is in the works coming up here relatively soon, if they're on such a mission to do things so quickly. And along with that, we have Saudi defense minister says Trump not bombing Iran would embolden the regime. Says at this point, if it doesn't happen, it will only embolden the Iranian regime. KBS, the Crown Prince's younger brother and closest confidant, was visiting Washington for meetings on Iran as the region braces for U.S. military action, and a response Tehran has vowed would be unprecedented in scope. Says Trump has ordered a massive U.S. military buildup in the Gulf, though the White House officials insist he hasn't made a final decision and is still willing to explore diplomacy. I'm pretty sure the decision's already been made. It's a timing thing, and we'll find out if they will or won't move forward with inaction of some type. It says at the moment, there are no serious direct negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. U.S. officials say Tehran doesn't seem interested in a deal based on the maximalist U.S. terms. Says Saudi Arabia's public posture has been very cautious. MBS told Iran's president in a call on Wednesday that the kingdom would not allow the U.S. to use its airspace for an attack on Iran. I don't know if you guys saw that, but pretty much all of those Middle Eastern states publicly said that they won't allow the U.S. to stage an offensive against Iran from their region. So take with that what you will. It says KBS was restrained in an hour-long meeting on Friday with around 15 think tank experts in the Middle East and representatives from 5 Jewish organizations. According to the sources, he said he thought Trump would have to take military action after threatening it for weeks, but would also have to try and mitigate the risks of regional escalation. At this point, if it doesn't happen, it will only embolden the regime, KBS said, according to the sources in the room. Just 3 weeks ago, the Saudis were practically begging the U.S. not to bomb Iran and warning of the risk of a regional war, U.S. officials said. 3 sources in the room said KBS insisted Saudi Arabia was not pivoting further away from Israel or toward the Muslim Brotherhood. He also rejected concerns attendees raised about a rise in anti-Israel sentiment in the Saudi press and social media. He said several times that it was nonsense, but the more that he said it, it sounded less reassuring, one participant said. Even in this report of all this, everything is contradicting itself in this entire report. This is why it's so difficult to follow and pay attention to all the stuff that's happening in the Middle East. Because even singular reports contradict themselves within there. So we do know that there is a buildup of United States military in the Gulf. We now know for sure that the USS Lincoln is now stationed in the Gulf, so it has made its journey over there, and it is there along with its crew because the carriers always go with a group of ships alongside him. So they're all there as well. We know that there's U.S. military personnel staged over in that region as well. We've got the back and forth that we always get with Trump. I'm going to strike you. I'm not going to strike you. I'm going to strike you. I'm not going to strike you. We got the same finger pointing coming from Iran as well, just pointing the finger. We got people getting murdered and killed and in the streets over in Iran, protests happening. We know that Mossad is on the ground in Iran during this whole thing. We know that there's been propaganda campaigns being pushed by both Iran and Israel regarding everything going on there. And then we know that there's another planned visit, the 7th time Netanyahu is going to be traveling to Washington to meet with Trump during this first presidency, or this 1 year presidency, which is unheard of. Nobody ever comes 7 times in 1 year to meet with the United States president. So there's definitely a lot of stuff happening over there. But there's a lot of reports and stuff coming out that we can't verify. We don't know if it's true. We don't know if it's legit. So we just got to wait and see what's going on. The latest rumor that's going around, I'm sure some of you guys have heard about it, is the latest rounds of Epstein documents was an intentional leak that the Department of Justice wasn't planning on doing, and it was Israel that intentionally leaked documents with Trump's name on there in order to blackmail him into attacking Iran. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm believing that one. But who knows? Maybe that actually did happen. I don't know. I do know that since the files came out, that many of the files have been withdrawn and redacted and stuff like that. So maybe it did happen. I don't know. Wouldn't put it past them. They've done like these intelligence groups do stuff like that all the time. So, but yeah, they said that there's a chance that a strike will happen Sunday or Monday because of that. We'll see. Again, when it comes to this Middle East stuff, I still, some people want to call me a coward because I won't take a stand on something in particular like this. But the fact is, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen day in, day out in regards to this Iran situation. So we'll see what happens. I'm just waiting to see. So. So we'll see what happens with the Iran situation. So I'm not, if I was a betting man and there was a bet going on, will the United States strike Iran or not? That's a bet that I would walk away from because I have no idea if it would be yes or no. So for anybody who's asking my opinion on that, that's what I would say. I'd just walk away from that bet. All right. How are we doing on time? We need to boogie through this last bit. We still got a lot of stuff. So we got to boogie through this stuff. We're going to get some updates on the ICE situation. And so, first up, federal judge slams ICE for violating nearly 100 court orders in January alone. Says ICE is not a law unto itself. Judges across the country are fed up with Trump administration's refusal to follow court orders requiring it to give bond hearings to detained immigrants. It says an escalating conflict between the federal judiciary and the Trump administration led a frustrated judge in Minnesota to release a list Wednesday of nearly 100 court orders he said ICE violated over the last month. It says ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. Patrick J. Schultz, chief judge of U.S. District Court for Minnesota, wrote in a court order Wednesday. Schultz found that ICE had violated a previous order to immediately release a man being held in an immigration detention center and schedule a bond hearing for him. It wasn't the first time it had happened. Schultz attached an appendix to his order of 96 court orders that ICE had violated in 74 different cases in the district. The list, Schultz wrote, was almost certainly an undercount and should give pause to anyone, no matter his or her political beliefs, who cares about the rule of law. Again, the Constitution's toast. Your Bill of Rights is gone. This is full authoritarian takeover that is currently happening right now. So this idea of rule of law, they're not even hiding it anymore. They're just bypassing right past it and doing whatever they want to do. Since ICE is not a law unto itself, Schultz continued, ICE has every right to challenge the orders of the court, but like any litigant, ICE must follow those orders unless they are overturned or vacated, which we know that they're not doing. Since the Trump administration insists that it can arrest anyone present in the country unlawfully without a warrant and hold them in mandatory detention without a bond hearing. This interpretation of the law abandons a precedent that has been in place for nearly 30 years. In response, immigrant detainees have flooded courts with emergency relief petitions, claiming their due process rights are being violated. Excuse me, man. The overwhelming majority of federal judges who've ruled on the issue say that the administration's statutory interpretation of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which governs immigration structure and enforcement, is flatly wrong, and that ICE is lawfully holding certain classes of aliens, such as asylum seekers. A political analysis said that these cases found 347 judges across the country rejected the administration's argument in more than 2,400 cases. Just 20 judges agreed with the administration. So if we're going with the MAGA logic on this, 347 judges are activist leftist judges, and only 20 judges are actually right-wing constitutional judges. That's the logic that we're going to go with. Or we could just go with the logic that there are 347 judges, whether they're leaning left or right, that all agree that the Trump administration is violating not only law, but constitutional rights in at least 2,400 cases. That's how I view it. Because I'm sorry, I just can't buy into the idea of 347 judges are leftist activist judges and there's 20 that actually are right. It's like, that's stupid. That's the dumbest position that you can take. I think the most appropriate position is based on evidence and fact that we've been looking at for months and months and months and months and months now, that the Trump administration is violating laws and the Constitution, and they don't give a crap what happens. So, along with that, we have this. This is what we were waiting for. We saw bits and pieces. Again, we're talking about those little nuggets that finally add up to something. Well, here we go. ICE begins buying mega warehouse detention centers across the United States. We talked about on Tuesday how they were buying the Hutchins County one that's outside of Dallas. Well, this is a part of the much bigger thing that's happening. It says plans for such centers and jails in nearly 24 communities have sparked protest over suitability, proximity to homes and schools. Despite protests in small towns and cities across the U.S., the Trump administration is pushing ahead with the purchase of warehouses it plans to convert into immigration jails in what would be the largest expansion of such detention capacity in U.S. history. These detention facility warehouses are not for immigrants. They're buying these things up and prepping it for United States citizens. Now, again, if I was a betting man and there was a bet on the table that said, are these detention centers for illegal immigrants or are they for U.S. citizens? I'm betting it's for U.S. citizens. It says the cost for acquiring 2 warehouses alone was $172 million. A third in El Paso, Texas could be among the largest jails of any kind in the country if completed as envisioned, with 8,500 beds. The deals mark the latest turn in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement plans to use as many as 23 warehouses for detaining thousands of immigrants arrested by federal agents in Minneapolis and other cities. On January 16th, the administration paid $102 million for a site near Hagerstown, Maryland, according to a court filing. A week later, the government paid $70 million in cash for a warehouse in Surprise, Arizona. The price tags, roughly in line with the industry average for the warehouse market, cover just the acquisition of the sites, which are currently empty shells. ICE still has to pay companies to outfit the buildings with toilets, showers, beds, dining, and recreation areas, and then run them as detention centers. If this was really about illegal immigration, this stuff would have been done much, much earlier. Not a year into this campaign. They're prepping for us. So the El Paso site was purchased by the Department of Homeland Security recently, according to people familiar with the transaction who asked not to be named, discussing a confidential process, but the sale price has yet to be made public. The warehouses, many of which originally were designed and marketed as e-commerce distribution facilities, represent a significant pivot for the administration's $45 billion immigration detention build-out. Last year, it relied on tent camps constructed in remote places like Florida Everglades and an army base in Texas, which I don't know if people have realized, but that alligator Alcatraz, several thousand people, immigrants and detainees, disappeared. Off the books. They can't find them. They have no idea where they're at. They're just gone. Several thousand people. Poof. Gone. The government doesn't know where they're at, or they're saying that they don't. The local authorities don't know where they're at. The sheriff doesn't know where they're at. The local PD doesn't know where they're at. The local government doesn't know where they're at. DeSantis doesn't know where they're at. Just gone. Several thousand people. Yeah. Wonder where they went. As of now, this is what it's looking like. These are where they're planning the detention centers. The small dots are bed count. So 1.5 K. So 1,500 beds in the small dots, 5,000 beds in the medium dots, and then 10,000 beds in the big dots. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting that why you got detention centers up in like New Hampshire and New Jersey and stuff like that? Why is there none in California? What's going on with that? A lot of detention centers up in that Northeast region. No border there. But there's a lot of U.S. citizens over there. Very interesting. I just thought that was kind of interesting where they're setting this stuff up. It says little has been publicly shared about the ISIS plans for new detention centers in small towns and cities across the country. Already, many residents have voiced opposition, and local leaders are considering options to prevent the agencies from using them. The concerns include both immigration politics as well as land use issues, proximity to homes and schools, and questions of sewer capacity and water demand. Given such pushback and logistical challenges, there's no guarantee that each of these 23 sites will be converted. It says these 23 locales were named in plans for warehouse-based jails. Hutchins, Texas, Social Circle, Georgia, Socorro, Clint, Texas, that's El Paso, Byhalia, Mississippi, Salt Lake City, Utah, Tremont, Pennsylvania, Kansas City, Missouri, Hagerstown, Maryland, Ashland, Virginia, Flowery Branch, Georgia, Orlando, Florida, Surprise, Arizona, Chester, New York, Roxbury, New Jersey, Hamburg, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, San Antonio, Texas, Shakopee, Minnesota, Port Allen, Louisiana, Merrimack, New Hampshire, McAllen, Texas, that's right in my backyard, Romulus, Michigan, and Merrillville, Indiana. That's what we're looking at. Here we go. All the giant warehouses for detention centers starting to move forward. On top of that, we got astounding $850 million going to ICE agent bonuses. Remember when we were supposed to be cutting back? Not when it comes to building the Gestapo. According to Florida representative, but we can't afford to feed the starving children. This is on a video. Congress admitted that they have set aside $800 million for ICE bonuses with a maximum of $44,000 bonus. It goes on to say a video shared shows what went down in a meeting with Congress. In the video, Congress admits that they set aside approximately $850 million in bonuses for ICE agents. Florida Representative Jared Moskowitz accuses them, I don't know if you know this, but you guys have $858 million, almost $1 billion, to give out bonuses to people. And so bonuses are great when people do good work, but $858 million sounds like a lot of money. He goes on to say, we can show the American people there's a little bit of waste here. It's totally excessive, and they know it. Says Jamie Raskin, a Maryland Democratic U.S. representative, said that this raises a profoundly serious point that has to be considered. He says that is a big bonus budget. He then asked Congress, have you done the math to see what that works out to be per ICE employee? Jared stuns everyone when he says $42,000 bonus for each employee. Yes, you heard that right. Every ICE agent would get a $42,000 bonus incentive just for working for ICE. Jared goes on to ask the room, what is the average bonus for an American worker? Just to put things into perspective, he says it's $2,500. This means on average, American workers get little over $2,000 at Christmas time in their paychecks, but an ICE agent gets 16 times more than that. And that's just for the Americans that actually get Christmas time bonuses. This is authoritarian government happening right here. How about this? Companies reap $22 billion from Trump's immigration crackdown. So again, we're supposed to be cutting back waste, but we got $22 billion going to companies that are working with ICE. Again, you think that that has to do with immigrants, especially after we just read how Trump is eliminating immigrants and then bringing in a ridiculous amount through visa programs, but yet you're spending $22 billion for this. This is not for immigrants. This is for us. It says companies, including Palantir and Deloitte, have collectively reaped more than $22 billion from contracts with agencies at the heart of Donald Trump's aggressive immigration crackdown over this past year. Consultants, tech groups, charter airlines, and a gravel company headed by an ally of the United States president have been among the biggest beneficiaries of a surge in spending on immigration and customs enforcement and customs border patrol. Financial Times analysis of the government contracting data shows that data intelligence group Palantir has received $81 million in contracts from ICE since January 2025. With Deloitte, the consulting firm, has been handed new work totaling more than $100 million from ICE and Border Patrol over the same period. Fisher Sand and Gravel, a group headed by Republican donor Tommy Fisher, and contracted to build portions of a wall along the southern U.S. border, has earned the most from Border Patrol contracts, receiving more than $6 billion since July. The biggest single beneficiary of ICE contracts has been CSI Aviation, a broker of charter flights to the agency, which has secured more than $1.2 billion of work since Trump returned to office last January. The windfalls comes as ICE spending on contracts was more than doubled to $3.7 billion in the 2 quarters following the passage of Trump's landmark Big Beautiful Bill, compared with $1.5 billion in the previous 6 months. Again, this has nothing to do with immigration. On top of that, exclusive ICE's secret watch lists of Americans. It says we have a nice little database, and now you're considered a domestic terrorist. You guys remember that video that I showed on Tuesday? Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Trisha McLaughlin, who I call the walking lie, response was firm and said there's no database of domestic terrorists runs by DHS. And again, she's lying. We already knew that. We've proved it, but now we got more. Says 2 senior national security officials tell me that there are more than a dozen secret and obscure watch lists that Homeland Security and the FBI are using to track protesters, both anti-ICE and pro-Palestinian, Antifa, and other who are promiscuously labeled domestic terrorists. I can reveal for the first time that some of these secret lists and applications go by code names like Blue Key, Grapevine, Hummingbird, Reaper, Sandcastle, Sienna, Slipstream, and Sparta. Those are some of the names of these lists. Some of these, like Hummingbird, were created to vet and track immigrants in the case of Afghans seeking to settle in the United States. Slipstream is a classified social media repository. Others are tools to link people. Listen to this. Others are tools to link people on the streets together, including collecting on their friends and their families who have nothing to do with purported lawbreaking. So these lists are not only for the people that they're tracking on the streets, but friends and family of those people that may not be involved at all, but they're on a list too, just because you're an associate to them. Says we came out of 9/11 with the notion that we would have a single terrorist watch list to eliminate confusion, duplication, and avoid bad communications. But ever since January 6th, and you guys thought January 6th wasn't a psyop, right? Not only have we expanded exponentially into purely domestic watch listing, but we have now also created a highly secretive and compartmented superstructure that even few understand, says DHS attorney familiar with the subject. Among other functions, the new watch list processes tips, situation reports, and collected photographs and video submitted by both the public and from agents in the field. They create a common operating picture in places like Minneapolis. They also, they allow task forces to target individuals for surveillance and arrest. And they create a capacity for intelligence people to link individuals together through geographic proximity, or what is labeled call chaining, by processing telephone numbers, emails, and other contact information. What I'm seeing out there from the different videos, court orders, testimonies, reports, I'm collecting from all these different things, trying to piece together a picture of what's going on out there. We have now entered into territory. I've seen this many times just recently. It just started ballooning. This particular case just started ballooning, where people they're the people that are like going around and filming all the ICE stuff that's happening. They're not even the ones that are necessarily getting involved with anything. They're literally just there, just filming and paying attention to what's going on. ICE agents who have never even personally interacted with these people are going up to them and saying their names and addresses to them. I'll say that again. ICE agents who have never actually met these people are walking up to them and reciting their names and addresses to them. It's because they're using facial recognition to collect the data of who that person is, and they're being put into a database. And so these agents are able to scan the person who's already been implemented in the database, gather the information, and walk up and literally threaten them without actually threatening them by reciting their name and address to them, basically saying, "We know who you are." I've seen several videos of ICE agents that are using Meta glasses in the field. Meta glasses have video and can be hooked up to facial recognition and can be used wherever the agent looks, can scan a face and pull up a profile in real time. We have entered into a dystopian movie. They were preparing for this. These lists and databases exist. And some people might say, well, I'm fine because I'm not actually going there and getting involved with anything. That's great. If you know somebody who is, you're in their database too, simply by extension and database collection. This is what I was warning about. And now we have, I can't prove it, but there's theories going around now that ICE agents will or already have begun targeted campaigns. And when I mean targeted, I mean finding somebody and attempting to kill them because of these databases. Now, I can't verify that, so I don't know if that's true or not. But I also can't sit here and say that they're not doing that either. Now, I know a lot of people like to take the position of, well, they shouldn't even be there. They shouldn't even be filming this stuff. They shouldn't even be in the vicinity of what's going on. And while I agree that I'd never find myself in that position doing any of that type of stuff, I can sit here and I can tell you, if what we're seeing is what they're willing to do with cameras all around them, just imagine what's going on when there aren't cameras around them. So, something to think about. Chew on that one and get back to me. Goes on to say, one thing I'm pushing for right now is we're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impeding, and assault are going to, we're going to make them famous. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, told Fox News earlier this month. Yeah, we showed the video of that. It says, when I asked civil liberties experts what might be legal justification for the expanding watch listing, Rachel Levinson-Waldman, the Brennan Center's Liberty and National Security Program Director, said that NSPM 7 and Attorney General Pam Bondi's December 5th memo implementing the presidential directive might be their justification. And there's the NSPM 7 again, rearing its ugly little head, pushing this forward. Again, this has nothing to do with immigration. We also have this. I've been keeping track of this case. I certainly hope that this goes through because I want to see what comes out from it. It says, woman shot by Border Patrol in Chicago asked judge to let her release evidence. Marimar Martinez is blocked from releasing evidence in her case by what's known as a protective order. Though this is standard, her attorney says it's become an albatross around the neck and keeps the entire country in the dark. It says this woman who survived 5 gunshots from a Border Patrol agent in Chicago last fall, only to be criminally charged and then cleared, now wants a judge's permission to share evidence that shows how the feds respond when their agents use deadly force against U.S. citizens. If you guys don't know this case, I'll talk about it in just a second so you know what happened. Marimar Martinez's lawyer argued Monday that top Trump administration officials continue to smear her name and that the White House's false narrative about her arrest has even seeped into writings by U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. All the while, a standard court order bars Martinez from sharing records in her case, such as body camera footage and electronic communications. This is designed to protect against improper disclosure of evidence. Attorney Chris Parente said that the order had become a prophylactic to countering a pernicious misinformation campaign mounted by the United States. They are forcing the public and the Supreme Court justices to have to rely solely on the government's inaccurate version of events, Parente wrote. This court has the power to shed light on the truth of what happened on October 4th. But now he says it's become an albatross around Martinez's neck and keeps the entire country in the dark about how Homeland Security responds to lethal force incidents by their agents, which have now unfortunately become a weekly occurrence. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Officer Jonathan Ross fatally shot Renee Good on January 7th. And on Saturday, Border Patrol agent shot and killed Alex Preddy. Both shootings occurred in Minneapolis. Senior administration officials on both cases labeled the victims as domestic terrorists. Border Patrol agents Charles Exum shot Martinez October 4th during the immigration campaign in Chicago known as Operation Midway Blitz. Exum fired 5 shots at Martinez, resulting in 7 wounds, and later bragged, Put that in your book, boys, and a text message. Yeah. He shot her 5 times. And then in a group text message, bragged about it. Federal prosecutors have filed an assault charge against Martinez, but moved to dismiss it November 20th. She is among 32 known federal defendants charged with non-immigration crimes tied to Operation Midway Blitz. 15 of those defendants have been cleared. No member of a group has been convicted. Even though charges were dropped against Martinez, she is described to this day on Homeland Security website as a domestic terrorist, Parente wrote. So, if you guys don't know this case, when it first happened, because I've been following it since this, when it first happened, we heard reports that Martinez was following immigration and then rammed her car into an ICE vehicle to try and push them off the road. And then ICE got out and shot her as a defense. That's what the DHS put out. That's what ICE put out. That's what the news reports put out when that whole thing happened. Video evidence then came out from the public that showed Martinez was indeed following them, recording, which is legal as long as she's not getting in the way, which on video she was not. ICE stopped, turned and rammed her car, got out and shot as she tried to escape. That's why she was not charged. That's why the cases were dismissed. That's why everything was found in favor of Martinez. The DHS said that she attacked them and it was a domestic terrorist, but the video evidence proved otherwise. And so now what Martinez is trying to do, because of the standard practice of keeping all that stuff held, which I think is a stupid standard practice. If the case is done, it's done and it should be released. But that's just me. I don't know anything. But she's trying to get a motion where she can get all that evidence out to the public, not only to clear her name, but to let people know that this is what is happening regularly with what's going on. Interesting. It says the news program 60 Minutes aired a piece this month about the incident involving Martinez and DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. The Walking Lie told CBS Border Patrol law enforcement officers were ambushed by domestic terrorists that rammed federal agents with their vehicles. The government narrative was then reached the Supreme Court. Parente complained, which we know is a lie. The ability to disseminate the factual evidence about the events of October 4th and DHS's response to Mrs. Martinez's shootings is one of the utmost importance to Mrs. Martinez and frankly the entire country at this tragic time in our nation's history. Ms. Martinez has no convictions nor pending criminal charges, but is still publicly degraded as a domestic terrorist by her own government. How about this? ICE expanding use of facial recognition technology on minors, kids, collides with DHS policy oversight warnings. U.S. immigration crackdown, children are in the crosshair. When masked federal agents stopped 2 teenagers riding their bikes near an Illinois high school last fall. Federal agents stopped 2 teenagers riding their bikes near a high school last fall. The encounter followed a now familiar script. The agents demanded proof of citizenship from kids. One of the teenagers, who said he was 16 and a U.S. citizen, told the agents that he had a school ID but did not have him on him. According to the lawsuit filed by the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, one agent then asked another, "Can you do a facial?" The other agent pointed a cell phone at the teenager, appearing to take a photo of his face. So now your kids, when they're riding their bikes, need to have proof of citizenship. Otherwise, they get facial recognition and put into a database. That moment, captured not by body camera footage, but sworn allegations, has become emblematic of a shift now under legal scrutiny as mobile facial recognition expands into everyday encounters with children far from the border and outside the controlled settings DHS has traditionally used to justify biometric identification. Among its most serious allegations is that the DHS agent have used facial recognition on minors who are U.S. citizens without consent, individualized suspicion, or meaningful public limits on retention and sharing. At the center of the case in DHS's use is Mobile Fortify, a field-deployed application that scans fingerprints and performs facial recognition, then compares collected data against multiple DHS databases, including Border Patrol's Traveler Verification Service, Border Patrol Systems, and the Office of Biometric Identity Management Automated Biometric Identification System. The complaint alleges DHS launched Mobile Fortify around June 25th and has used it in the field more than 100,000 times since launch. 100,000 times since June of 2025. The lawsuit cites a DHS privacy threshold analysis stated that ICE agents may use Mobile Fortify when they encounter an individual or associates of that individual, and that agents do not know an individual's citizenship at the time of the initial encounter and use Mobile Fortify to determine or verify identity. If you're going to sit here and tell me that this ain't Papers, Please, 1930s Germany authoritarian fascist regime, then you are not being honest. The same passage as quoted by the complaint authorizes collection in identifiable form, regardless of citizenship or immigration status, acknowledging that a photo captured could be of a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. The lawsuit further alleges DHS retains biometric collected through Mobile Fortify, regardless of citizenship or age, up to 15 years. If that claim is borne out, children subjected to brief street encounters could carry a biometric record into adulthood without being charged, arrested, or even suspected of wrongdoing. What am I supposed to even say at this point? I mean, this stuff is... How much do we have to go through for people to realize what is happening right this very minute? This is a planned and orchestrated event to bring in technocratic authoritarianism. How about this? How ICE already knows who Minneapolis protesters are. Agents use facial recognition, social media monitoring, and other tech tools not only to identify undocumented immigrants, but also to track protesters, current and former officials said. On the morning of January 10th, Nicole Cleland was in her car trailing an immigration and customs enforcement agent through Richfield, Minnesota, her hometown. Suddenly, the agent turned into a series of one-way streets, stopped getting out of his white Dodge van, or his white Dodge Ram, said Cleland, who volunteers a local watchdog group that observes the activity of immigration officers. The agent then walked over to Cleland's car and surprised her by addressing her as Nicole. Remember when I was talking about how these people know who they are without even meeting them? He said that he had facial recognition and that his body camera was on, said Cleland, 56, who had not met this agent before. Cleland was one of at least 7 American citizens told by ICE agents this month that they were being recorded with facial recognition technology in and around Indianapolis. Facial recognition is just one technology tool that ICE has deployed in Minneapolis, where thousands of agents are conducting a crackdown. The technologies are being used not only to identify undocumented immigrants, but also to track citizens who have protested ICE presence, said 3 current and former officials of the Department of Homeland Security who are not authorized to discuss confidential matters. Again, I know the thing that I keep hearing from people is, well, they shouldn't have been there in the first place. Well, whether you think it's a stupid idea to be there or not, the fact is they have every right, as long as they are not getting in the way, to be in public and to record authority. That is their rights. So again, whether you think it's stupid or not, it's just one of those things. Like I always say, while I may not agree with what one person is out there saying, I still will stand by the fact that they have a right to go out there and say it. So while I think I could disagree with everything that they're saying and think that they're wrong and stupid and all these things for what they're doing, they still have a right to go and say it. Same with when it comes to going out into a public place and recording what's going on with this stuff. Whether you agree that it's true or not, the fact is they have every right to do it. And again, I stand by the thing of I wouldn't ever be out there, but just imagine if people out there weren't recording what's going on. If you think it's bad with videotape, imagine what's going on when the tape isn't rolling. So that's the thing. Again, whether you think it's stupid or not, do they have a right to do it as long as they're not getting in the way? Yes, they do. It says ICE is using 2 facial recognition programs in Minnesota, they said, including one made by tech company Clearview AI, which we know Peter Thiel is an investor of, and a newer program, Mobile Fortify, we just talked about. The agency is also using cell phone and social media tools to monitor people's online activity and potentially hack into phones. And agents are tapping in a database built by the data analytics company Palantir that combines government and commercial data to identify real-time locations for individuals they are pursuing, the current and former officials said. ICE has vastly expanded its tech tools over the last year. After an influx of cash in July, President Donald Trump signed a bill increasing ICE annual budget to roughly $28 billion from $8 billion, making it the most richly funded law enforcement agency in the federal government. In April, the Homeland Security Department awarded Palantir a nearly $30 million contract to build a system backed by artificial intelligence that would help find and track individuals for deportation. Palantir was due to deliver a prototype by September 25th, according to the public tenders issued by the agency. The agency has started using the system, Homeland Security officials confirmed. In September, the Homeland Security Department also spent nearly $10 million acquiring at least 3 social media monitoring tools and services that allow it to delve into people's cell phones, according to procurement records and public contracts for the project. One of the tools, which was built by Paragon, we've talked about Paragon as well, an Israeli technology company, lets people take control of phones or remotely hack into them to read messages or track locations. The others were built by Penlink. We've talked about Penlink as well, a Nebraska-based software company. They use social media data scraped from the web and information from data brokers to help build dossiers of anyone with a social media account. Again, if you think all of that is for immigration, you're wrong. Doesn't matter which way you look at it. Whether it's designed under the guise of immigration with the initial plan to be used against us in the first place, or this technology actually was being designed and curated to be used for immigration. But once the immigration problem's done, they're not just going to let that technology sit there. They're going to turn it on us. So again, it doesn't matter which way you look at it. The fact is this technology is for us. We got this. ICE protester says her global entry was revoked after agents scanned her face. Global entry and pre-check revoked 3 days after incident, court filings said. Here's Cleland again, getting a little bit more detail on her. Minnesota resident Nicole Cleland had her global entry and TSA pre-check privileges revoked 3 days after an incident which she observed activity by ICE agents, the woman said in a court declaration. An agent told Cleland that he had used facial recognition technology to identify her, she wrote in a declaration filed in the United States District Court for the District of Minnesota. Cleland, a 56-year-old resident of Richfield, we've gone over all this stuff, talking about the Dodge Ram stopping, going up to her and everything like that. Cleland said that she and another observer in a different car followed the Dodge Ram because of concerns about local apartment raids and all that type of stuff. And it says, an agent exited the vehicle and approached my vehicle, Cleland wrote. I remained in my vehicle. The agent addressed me by my name and informed me that they had facial recognition and that his body camera was recording. The agent stated that he worked for Border Patrol. He wore full camouflage fatigues, and the agent claimed that she was impeding his work. Following and recording is not impeding. It's not. But they don't care. They just make it up as impediment. He indicated he was giving me a verbal warning, and if I was found impeding again, which means exercising her First Amendment right, she would be arrested. Now, repercussion of that, Cleland said that she could discern no reason why the agents stopped me other than the fact that I was following them. But on January 13th, she received an email notification that her global entry and TSA pre-check privileges were passing through airport security were revoked, she said. Cleland said that the revocation appears to be a form of intimidation and retaliation. Says, I logged on the global entry site and the notification letter indicated that indeed my status had been revoked and that they can't always disclose the reason. The notification did provide some reasons that my status may have changed, and the only one that makes sense was the applicant has been found in violation of any customs, immigration, and agricultural relations, procedures, or laws in any country. I was not detained, I was not arrested, so it's difficult to understand how I was found in violation. Now, this is one report of this. There's been news coming out that many people are now reporting that their TSA and global entry stuff is now being revoked as well because of being scanned by ICE stuff as well. The reason why this is important is because they can now start blocking your ability to travel if they deem you a domestic terrorist or a threat. Much more than what we have now. But now, if you are just doing what they don't like, if you oppose them in any type of way, they can scan you and start blocking you from traveling. This is entry-level social credit score. This is entry-level social credit score. Welcome to CCP Light. Because you're here. It's like the scene from Pirates of the Caribbean when it says with Elizabeth Swan's on the ship and all of a sudden she goes out and sees that there's the curse on the Black Pearl, and Barbossa comes out and says, if you don't believe in ghost stories, you best start believing one because you're in it. It's basically what's going on here. Is for those who don't realize that we're now entering into this technocratic system because they're so blinded by their support of Trump that this stuff is coming right in unannounced and they're encouraging it. Welcome. Just a couple more things and we'll wrap this up. We're going late tonight, I know, but just got a couple things. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we got this new video show, Alex Preddy scuffle with federal officers in Minneapolis 11 days before his death. I received a couple of emails from people asking about what was going on with this thing. And yeah, so let's take a look at what's going on. It says Alex Preddy was forcefully taken to the ground by federal immigration agents after kicking out the tail light of their vehicle during a Minneapolis protest 11 days before he was shot and killed by Border Patrol officers. Videos that emerged Wednesday show. The January 13th scuffle was captured in a pair of videos that show Preddy shouting an expletive at a federal officer and spitting on the car and then struggling with them. His winter coat comes off when he is on the ground and he either breaks free or the officers let him go and he scurries away. When he turns his back to the camera, what appears to be a handgun is visible in his waistband. It's the same gun as the last time. At no point do the videos show Preddy reaching for the gun, and it is unclear whether the federal agents saw it. A person with knowledge of the incident confirmed to the Associated Press that the man in the videos is Preddy and that he has told his family of the confrontation. The family came out and confirmed in this video that it is indeed Alex Preddy. So some people are thought... I'll just start out with this before we kind of explain what it is. Some people thought that this was the smoking gun to prove that Alex Preddy deserved to be shot and killed. The day that was it 24th? Was it 24th? I can't remember the day that happened. But a lot of people on the right wing and stuff like that, the MAGA group, are saying that this is justification for his execution that happened. So if you guys don't know, there is a video that came out a couple days after the shooting that happened. I think it was the 24th. I could be wrong on the date. Where it was 11 days prior to that, he got into another scuffle with the ICE agents. So he was with a group of people shouting at him, and he shouted at him as they were getting into their car. He spit on the car, and then he kicked out the taillight of a Ford car, which shows how cheaply made Fords are. Sorry, I have to take a pot shot at Ford every time I do. And then the ICE agents got out, tackled him to the ground, pulled his coat off. He had his gun right there, and then they just let him go. Here's the fact of what's going on. The dude should have been arrested then and there, but he wasn't. I don't know why he wasn't. I really don't. There's theories out there for that. I don't have an answer of what it is. So do with that what you will. But he should have been arrested for that, because that's federal offense. You can't assault a federal car like that. Some people are saying that, see, your video about execution is disproven because this is the type of person that he is. It's like, okay, first of all, I never claimed that the dude was a saint. I never claimed that he didn't do anything bad. I actually remember explicitly saying that I don't know anything about this dude's past. I'm just talking about that incident that happened at the here and now. And so this idea that this incident, which he should have been arrested for, validates the execution, which it still is an execution in the street 11 days later, is garbage. That's the dumbest thing that you could argue on that. I had some people ask, is this video AI because it looks weird? It does look weird. It's not AI though, the video. I did a lot of looking on that because you just got to be careful with videos now. But no, it's not AI. Some taillight assemblies can fall apart that easy if you kick them. I used to drive a cab, and we had a couple of Ford vans, and literally I bumped the taillight assembly I don't know how many times, and because they're plastic holders in there, they just bust and fall off. It happens all the time. So for those asking about that, there's also a second video from a different person that's across the street looking at it, and both videos match up. So it is legitimate. So for those asking if it's AI, it's not. The reason why it looks weird is the only thing I can come up with is they did some artificial smoothing and enhancement and stuff, which can cause things to go fuzzy on it. Not fuzzy, but make it look artificial. In no way, shape, or form was I ever taking the position that this dude is not making stupid decisions and being in places that he shouldn't do. I never made that claim. But the fact is that issue that happened 11 days prior does not justify the execution of a man who, in that particular incident of his death, did nothing illegal and nothing wrong. Again, you can argue if he should have been there in the first place. That's your prerogative. He has every right to be there. But it does not justify it. The issue that I want to point out in regards to this is the fact of, and I'm going to call out two people in particular, because it needs to be done. One is Tom Hughes on his "You Can't Make This Up" this past Thursday, decided that he was going to play a comedic video that shows Alex Pretty's death, making light of it and laughing about it publicly. A man who claims to be a pastor and a Christian and an ambassador for Christ and the truth decided to make light and laugh at the execution and death of an individual. You are a sick man. You are a sick man. Way to represent Christ. The second person I'm going to call out is Brandon Holthouse, who I'm pretty sure is employed by the feds at this point because of the absolute narrative propaganda nonsense that he continues to push. But he did everything in his power, because he actually did talk about this thing for a period of time, everything in his power to, without explicitly saying it, justify the killing of Alex Pretty. He says, he may or may not have been reaching for his gun. I don't know. When the video clearly shows that he wasn't. And then he tried to list off all these things to try and justify. And then if you go and look at the comments on his videos, you can tell who follows Brandon Holthouse very closely, because there's been many people in his comments saying that his death and his killing was absolutely justified. People in his comments. Now, again, the people who put out videos can't control what people comment on our videos. I've been accused of that. I'm not going to accuse Brandon Holthouse of that, but it just goes to show that that mentality seeps over. It does. You're disgusting too. You are a propagandist, Brandon Holthouse. You are a propagandist. How much are they paying you? Speaking of pastors, quote unquote, and people of leadership and faith, Dr. Robert Jeffress put this out. Some of our church ladies at the new film Melania, and includes My Prayer for the President and First Lady. That's a cult if I've ever seen one before. I wonder why church ladies is in quotations. Sure, you can figure that one out. But these church ladies all dressed up the same as Melania to go see the Melania movie, which she's apparently had a prayer for on that. If you guys don't know, this guy right here on the right, that guy there on the right, he's the director of the Melania movie. And he's all up and down in the Epstein files. It's Brett Ratner. He directed the Melania movie. And he's all connected to that. So interesting. So interesting how pastors and Christians who claim that there's for the truth and for Christ and for biblical foundations and stuff will do everything that they possibly can to try to protect satanic, demonic pedophiles that currently sit in the United States government. And then defend the technocratic authoritarianism and fascist regime that they're implementing in this country, standing for everything that they claim that they stand against. We'll finish with this. I got a couple other things, but I'll push it until Tuesday because we're going super late. I'll finish with this because this is the last ICE thing that we got. Springfield braces for 30-day targeted ICE surge after Haitian TPS ends. DeWine office declined to verify briefing to Springfield City School District. This is a message sent to Springfield City School District staff. Obtained by the Springfield News-Sun, said schools officials are expecting a federal immigration enforcement operation to begin in Springfield, lasting at least 30 days, sometimes after Tuesday. The day temporary protected status runs out for Haitians. So if this is true, they're aligning their enforcement operations to happen immediately at the end of a TPS temporary protected status. This is the message from Springfield City School District Superintendent Bob Hill. Says that in a meeting last week by Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and state leadership, emergency management officials and others discussed that a federal immigration enforcement initiative may begin sometime after the TPS deadline. The News-Sun verified that the email's authenticity with the district, and the governor's office confirmed DeWine recently met with Hill. It says temporary protected status was initially set to end February 3rd, 2026, after the Biden administration extended it, but the Department of Homeland Security announced an official termination would happen September 2nd, 2025, saying the conditions in Haiti had improved and its immigrants no longer meet the conditions for TPS. Federal judge recently ruled that the ending TPS early was unlawful, blocking the program from ending early, but an appeal is expected. TPS is set to expire February 3rd, 2026. As of now, multiple lawsuits challenging the ending are ongoing. So we might be getting a whisper of the next place that they're going to go after, and they could begin literally the day after protected status happens to just immediately go in and collect people. So yeah, if you're in that region, just let you know. So, but yeah, we're going to go in there. We didn't get through everything, but we got through as much as we could. We don't want to go too long. This is already crazy long. So, but yeah, things are moving. Things are absolutely going crazy. Where there's smoke, there's definitely fire. Again, this is only the stuff that we could cover for tonight. I still got stuff that will carry over till Tuesday. It just never stops. But yeah, I'll trying to do my best to make sure that everybody's aware of what's happening on this. So we're going to go ahead and end, of course, with the most important thing of it all, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because again, we can have all this information, we can know about all this stuff, and we can be aware of everything, but it means nothing if we don't have our soul in the hands of Jesus Christ. So his gospel is as simple as A, B, C. A is you admit that you're a sinner. The act of repentance, the changing of mind, metanoia, turning from self to Christ, is all about true belief. It's like, how can you believe in Jesus Christ as your Savior if you don't understand why you need him as your Savior? And it's through this repentance that allows you to have true belief in him. Because, you know, if you don't actually realize that you need him, you don't understand why you need him, then you can't really put your belief and your faith in him. And so it's through repentance that allows true belief in Jesus Christ. We believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only. And he lived the perfect, sinless life, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders. The only one qualified, the spotless lamb, where he carried it all, the world's sin, to his cross, where he was crucified and he died. But because there's power in the blood of Jesus Christ, and he did exactly as he said he would, he promised he would, and he prophesied that he would, he defeated death and rose again on the third day. For all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. Again, we must place our belief in him. We must place our faith in him. And when we place our faith in Jesus Christ, we place our faith in Christ. We place our faith in his spilled blood. We place our faith in his finished work upon that cross. And we place our faith in the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. And when we receive Christ, we receive salvation. We are indwelt with the Holy Spirit, where we receive the supernatural gift of prayer that allows us direct access to the throne room of God, where we can go to our Heavenly Father at any moment of any day and speak with him, something that he desires with us. And we read that in his word, where he tells us to not cease praying. So we say, Lord God, thank you for this time, for allowing us to get together and to talk about the absolutely incredibly crazy things that are happening in this world right now. But we know that these things are leading up to eventual fulfilling of your prophecy, Lord God. And we thank you for allowing us to live in these times, to see what's going on, even though it may bring us some hard times and some trials and tribulations and these things. God, we are so blessed to live in these times. God, please give us the strength and the boldness to be warriors for the name of Jesus, to go out into this crazy world and to share the name of Jesus in the darkest of places, to stand confidently on the truth and not be moved. We say, Lord Jesus, please come soon. In your holy name we pray. Amen. All right. That is that. And we are rolling super late tonight, so we're going to go ahead and pass on questions. I'm sorry if you put your question in. I'll roll those over for next on Tuesday, and we'll see if we can get your questions from tonight answered on Tuesday, because I don't want to reject you guys, but we just don't have time. We just don't have time tonight. So, but thank you guys for joining me. Usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe. Get this out to as many people as you can. Not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people, getting people to Jesus. So if you guys knew me, saw it, and like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. Also, make sure you guys follow on Rumble and Telegram if you want to. Rumble is the backup channel where we will, if we get kicked off YouTube, we'll be backup live streaming over on there. And then Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. I throw on Telegram. So if you have those things and you want to follow along, go ahead. If not, no worries. Just make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything that's going on. With Wretched Watchmen, you'll find the latest podcasts and live streams. The announcements are there. And the free book to download and all that type of stuff. So make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark the page. And then last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, GiveSendGo. This channel's not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys like to support this channel and what we got going on, those links are below. Thank you guys for your support and your donations and your prayers and encouragement. Again, you guys are the ones that make this run. You guys are the ones that make this free. And I'm so just incredibly blessed and thankful for you guys. And I thank the Lord for you as well. So thank you guys for your support. So that's that. So tomorrow is Sunday. So get your wretched, heathenic, misfit booties to church tomorrow, whether online, in person, doesn't matter as long as it's a Bible-believing, Christ-following church. I know there's still some people who are dealing with snowstorms and ice storms and stuff being canceled. So a couple pastors online. My pastor, Jeff Solwold, you guys can go check him out at Calvary Chapel, Madison. And then Charles Lawson as well for old school Baptist style preaching. So those are a couple good ones if you are still trapped and looking for online stuff. So other than that, I'll leave you guys right here. And if we're not gone by Tuesday, same time, same place, meet you guys right back here. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.